Chapter 30-975. Suing Xue and He Bingrue had placed all their hopes on Xiao Wenyu. He was their last hope. However, when they saw Xiao Wenyu's indifference, their hearts gradually turned cold. His attitude was very clear, and that was that he would not come save them. A strong hatred spread in Su Yingshue's heart. It was all because of Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for that damned Bailey Hongzhuang, things wouldn't have ended up like this. Bailey Hongzhuang, it's all because of you. Su Yingxue glared at Bailey Hongzhuang hatefully, her eyes flashing with anger and jealousy. She had only verbally offended Bailey Hongzhuang, which wasn't a big deal, but it was enough to force her to such a state. What right did she have? Hearing Su Yingshue's angry words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but turn her head. Compared to the former's hysteria, she was calm and indifferent. I said before, you will be taught a lesson. Facing Bailey Hongzhuang's nonchalant words, Su Yingxue was unable to restrain her anger. She immediately wanted to charge in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction. I'm going to kill you. However, just as Su Yingxue was about to move in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her body. She lowered her head in a daze and realized that her chest had been pierced by a sharp sword. She looked at He Bingrue, who was behind her in astonishment, her face filled with disbelief. Bingrue, you. Su Yingxue pointed at He Bingrue, unable to recover from the shock. She had no idea why He Bingrue would treat her like this. Why? He Bingrue pulled out her sharp sword. Facing Su Yingshue's question, she could only remain silent. She then turned her gaze to Bailey Hongzhuang. Junior sister Bailey, I've already killed Su Yingxue for you. Can you let me live? Su Yingxue fell to the ground with a loud bang and was immediately torn into pieces by the skeletons that rushed up. Before she died, her eyes were still glaring at He Bingrue. Obviously, she had never thought that her most trusted friend would stab her with a sword. This feeling of betrayal made her extremely uncomfortable. This scene was clearly beyond everyone's expectations. No one thought that He Bingrue would do such a thing in order to save her own life. For a moment, everyone only felt that this He Bingrue was also an extremely terrifying person. That was her best friend. Previously, the two of them had been fighting against a common enemy. However, at this moment of life and death, she had gone overboard. After seeing this scene, everyone suddenly felt that although Su Yingshue's temper was annoying, people like He Bingrue were more terrifying. He betrayed them without hesitation. Who would dare to be teammates with such a person? He had to be prepared to be betrayed at any time. Everyone couldn't help but look at Xiao Wenyu. They didn't know how he felt as the captain. Xiao Wenyu instantly broke out in cold sweat. He had been teammates with He Bingrue for such a long time, but he had never known that He Bingrue had such a personality. He couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. Junior sister Bailey, I beg you. I don't want to die. He Bingrue shouted. The skeletons in front of her made her feel despair. With just her strength, it was impossible for her to walk out. Chapter 39-76. If He Bingrue had persisted until the end with Su Yingxue, perhaps she would have admired her. However, her current actions had undoubtedly proved that He Bingrue was truly a despicable person. Such a person's death was not to be regretted. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, He Bingrue's face also showed a deep sense of despair. She originally thought that by helping Bailey Hongzhuang to vent her anger, the latter would let her off. She never thought that she would not achieve the effect she wanted. A blood-curdling scream came from He Bingrue's mouth. The surrounding skeletons had already closed in on her and directly broke her arm. Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze. Sometimes, if you take a wrong step, you can never turn back. Even if He Bingrue regretted it now, it was useless because such an ending was destined from the start. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were quickly surrounded by the skeleton army. The skeleton army was very strong, but the three of them were not weak either. Therefore, even though they were surrounded, they did not show any signs of being unable to fight back. The others fought with the skeleton army at the periphery, taking advantage of this opportunity to earn more points. However, everyone's gaze still fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. Once they discovered that they were in danger, they would definitely go to their aid at the first moment. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's strength was very strong. After plucking a certain number of black flowers, they did not continue to stay and immediately retreated to the periphery. Only when they reached the periphery did everyone heave a sigh of relief. You guys came back safe and sound. At least there was no danger. Shangguan Yingying sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Yes, we came back safe and sound. Even though they were not weak, under such a high-intensity battle, the consumption of their primary energy was very shocking. Therefore, it was not suitable for them to drag on for too long. When the skeleton army saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had returned safely, they were obviously very dissatisfied. Immediately, they launched a wave of attacks towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. However, their team today could be said to be extraordinarily large. There were no less than 20 experts present. Even if the skeleton army launched an attack, they were still unable to seriously injure them. Following the failure of 2 consecutive attacks, the night was already half over, and the skeleton army gradually left. After the skeleton army left, Bailey Hongzhuang took a closer look. Sure enough, after the skeleton army disappeared, the black flower disappeared as well. It was as if it had never appeared. Those guys are finally gone. I'm so tired. Shangguan Ying sat limply on the ground, rubbing her other arm with one hand. She had been waving her sword the whole night, and her arm was sore. Xiren sat down beside Shangguan Ying and began to massage her shoulders. You can have a good rest now. Bailey Hongzhuang also sat down. She did not feel very tired. This kind of intensity was already a routine reform for her, so she did not feel that it was too tiring. I really didn't expect Su Yingxue to die in the hands of Yibing Rue. This ending really makes one sigh. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but shake her head. Her face was full of emotions. In the end, even she was shocked. Chapter 3977. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately took out the black flower she had plucked earlier. She was very curious about the black flower and wanted to know if it was the catalyst she had been looking for all this time. If it was, then the power of darkness would no longer be a threat to them in the future. Ren Ziheng and the others were currently using Bailey Hongzhuang's medicine. No matter how careful they could not avoid injuries after a night of battle. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang examine the black flower, Lin Mingtao could not help but ask, Junior Sister Bailey, is the catalyst you've been looking for this black flower? Bailey Hongzhuang withdrew her gaze from the black flower and turned to look at Lin Mingtao. She shook her head. I can't be sure right now. I need some time to study the characteristics of the black flower before I can determine it. Understood. Lin Mingtao nodded and smiled in admiration. Junior Sister Bailey's eyesight is really good. You even noticed such a rare black flower. I've been training here for so long, but I've never noticed it. My eyesight is really bad. Lin Mingtao, you're right. I've been here for so long, but I've never noticed it, sighed Ren Ziheng. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled when she heard that. You're not doctors, so of course you wouldn't pay special attention to these things. It's just that I've been looking for it the entire time, which is why I noticed it today. If the black flower really is a catalyst for restraining the power of darkness, then that's interesting. So many people from the 100 Flowers sect have been searching for a catalyst here, but they've never found anything. Junior Sister Bailey, you've only been here for the second time, and you've already discovered it. I'm sure they'll be furious when they find out. Chu Jinfeng seemed to have thought of something funny and could not help but chuckle. Everyone present could not help but chuckle when they heard Chu Jinfeng's words. It was just as Chu Jinfeng had said. If Bailey Hongzhuang had found it so easily, then the people from the 100 Flowers sect would indeed be depressed to death. The sky gradually brightened. After recovering her Yuan Qi, Bailey Hongzhuang did not plan on going anywhere else. She focused all her attention on the black flower. She had a vague premonition that the thing she was looking for was this black flower. Ren Ziheng, Junior Sister Bailey, thank you so much for your help yesterday. You've already saved us twice. I will never forget the favor of saving my life. Xiao Wenyu cupped his fists and bowed deeply to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After being rescued the last time, He had been thinking about how he could repay this kindness. He never thought that before he could repay the previous kindness, he would be rescued by Bailey Hongzhuang and the others again. Senior brother Xiao, don't worry about it. It's only right for fellow disciples to help each other, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. I didn't expect you to save me twice in such a short period of time. I feel extremely ashamed. Xiao Wenyu sighed. His expression was filled with helplessness. Xiao Wenyu, don't take it to heart. In this training ground, we have always helped each other. This time, I will help you. Next time, you can help me, Ren Ziheng said with a smile. Xiao Wenyu smiled and nodded. If you need my help in the future, just let me know. Chapter 3978. Renzime couldn't help but look at Xiao Wenyu. Originally, it was already very dangerous with only 6 people in their team. Now that they had lost 2 people, the 4 of them might not be able to hold on until they returned. Hearing Renzime's words, Xiao Wenyu's expression was a little awkward. This was a big problem that he had been thinking about. Before suing Xue made a scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already agreed to form a team with them until they left. However, after that incident, he didn't have the face to mention it again. However, now that there were only 4 people left in their team, what should they do was really a big problem. This, Xiao Wenyu said awkwardly, I don't know what to do for the time being. If senior brother Xiao doesn't mind, then form a team with us and go back when the teleportation formation opens, Di Baichen suddenly said. Hearing this, Xiao Wenyu and the others couldn't help but look at Di Baichen in surprise. They didn't expect Di Baichen to be willing to help them now. The next moment, the 4 of them couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want to, they naturally wouldn't stay here shamelessly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded indifferently. Senior brother Xiao, if you don't mind, then stay. Shangguan Yingying and the others also nodded. They had a very good impression of Xiao Wenyu and the others. The 4 of them weren't pretentious and didn't put on airs. No matter what happened, they had a lot of discussion and were very respectful to them. Forming a team with them was just for convenience and wouldn't drag them down. Now that they were going to stay in Penglai Palace for a while, there was no harm in making more friends. Xiao Wenyu and the others looked at each other and smiled happily. Thank you very much. At this time, Lin Mingtao also stood up and said, It's already dawn. We'll leave first. Lin Mingtao, you're leaving? Xiao Wenyu looked at Lin Mingtao in surprise. He thought that Lin Mingtao and Bailey Hongzhuang had already formed a team. He didn't expect Lin Mingtao to leave at dawn. Not bad. Lin Mingtao smiled and nodded. Yesterday, I happened to meet Ren Ziheng and the others, so we temporarily formed a team. We said that it was only a temporary team. Now that the sun has risen, we naturally won't continue to disturb you. Listening to Lin Mingtao's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at him with a bit more appreciation. Ren Ziheng's previous judgment was really correct. This Lin Mingtao was really a shrewd person. His way of dealing with people made people feel very comfortable. Ren Ziheng, junior brother D, farewell. Lin Mingtao cupped his fists and said. The cultivators behind him also said, farewell. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also stood up and cupped their hands. Goodbye, take care. Take care. Then, Lin Mingtao and his group slowly disappeared from the sight of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang continued to sit down. She needed some time to study this black flower. Let's stay here and cultivate today. Hongzhuang wants to study the characteristics of this black flower. It's not too late for us to act when the skeleton army appears at night, Di Baichen said slowly. No problem. Ren Ziheng nodded. Anyway, it's the same no matter where during the day. We might as well save our energy. Xiao Wenyu, what do you think? Chapter 3979. Bailey Hongzhuang focused all her attention on researching the black flower. This was the first time she had seen such a flower, and there were no records of it in the medical books. Hence, she would need some time to understand the characteristics of the black flower. After Bailey Hongzhuang focused on researching the black flower, everyone else also focused on meditating and cultivating. After the great battle last night, Taking advantage of this time to cultivate would greatly increase their powers. Time slowly passed, and before they knew it, it was already evening. When the three beasts saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had been researching the flower, they could not help but come closer. Master, how's your research coming along? At the moment, I've discovered some characteristics, but there are still many things that we don't know. It's not something that can be figured out in a short period of time. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly replied. Can this black flower be used as a medicinal ingredient? Baisher asked curiously. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment before nodding. It should be possible. There are also some special substances in it that I've never seen before. It's really interesting. Ever since she had arrived at this training ground, she had realized that everything that had appeared in this place was very foreign to her. Even the things that the black flower contained were things that she had never understood before. Just this point alone was already very shocking. After all, in order to study medicine, she had read through almost all the medical books. As long as it was about medicinal ingredients, there was almost nothing that she did not understand. Now, she had actually seen medicinal ingredients that she had never seen before. This was extremely rare. She believed that even if this black flower had fallen into the hands of the members of the 100 Flowers Order, they would not know anything about it either. The entire night was still peaceful. When Xiao Wenyu and the others realized this, they felt unusually helpless. Following beside Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they were not worried about the appearance of the skeleton army. However, there was no trace of the skeleton army at all. When they had parted ways with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they were worried that the skeleton army would appear. However, the skeleton army had appeared right where they were, making it impossible for them to hide. What kind of situation was this? In the following days, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to focus all her energy on studying the black flower. Every day, there would be some new progress. Rin Ziheng and the others couldn't help but admire Bailey Hongzhuang when they saw how persistent she was in her research. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were so amazing. Just this kind of persistence was not something an ordinary person could have. Where there was a will, there was a way. Just by looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's perseverance, one could tell that there was nothing she couldn't accomplish. A few days later, they encountered the skeleton army again. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bailey Hongzhuang plucked a lot of black flowers. Now, she was almost certain that this black flower was the catalyst that she had been looking for. As long as it was combined with a few other medicinal herbs, she believed that it would be able to effectively restrain the power of darkness. Who would have thought that the solution to the unbreakable power of darkness would be in the appearance of the black flower when the skeleton army appeared? Nature was indeed incomparably mysterious. Junior Sister Bailey, does this mean that you've already researched a medicine that can completely restrain the power of darkness? Xiao Wenyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. His heart was filled with shock. Chapter 3980. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Although I'm not completely sure, I think it's pretty close. The prescription that she had researched before was already able to restrain the dark power, but it lacked a guiding herb, so it couldn't be completely cured. Now that the guiding herb had been found, she only needed to adjust the ratio, and she believed that it would be successful. Hongzhuang, you're really amazing. Shangguan Yingying couldn't hide the excitement on her face. You actually found a way to break the dark power so quickly. If this news is spread, I think everyone will be very surprised. Yes, Renzime clapped her hands. This is a big problem that Penglai Island has been unable to solve for so many years. Now that you can completely solve it, this is great news for everyone. They have been troubled by this problem for too long. Many times, ordinary injuries were not fatal at all, but because of the existence of the dark power, the injuries could not be healed and they could only lose their lives. In fact, since Bailey Hongzhuang developed the healing medicine, the casualties of the practitioners had been reduced a lot. If it could be completely solved, it would be even better. I'll research it later. When it's completely developed, I'll give the prescription of the healing medicine to the hall master. At that time, everyone can use it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled lightly. From the perspective of dealing with skeletons, they were all companions, so she naturally wouldn't be stingy. Then I have to thank Junior's sister Bailey first. Xiao Wenyu sighed. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and others were talking happily, they didn't notice that there was a group of people watching them not far from them. Senior brother Li, there seems to be people from Penglai Palace in front. Did your contract beast hear what they were talking about? Li Yinyu asked. After Cheng Tri and the contract beast communicated for a while, a thick shock appeared on his face. Senior brother Li, the contract beast said that they were talking about the healing medicine that can restrain the dark power. As soon as these words came out, Li Yunyu couldn't help but be stunned. Healing medicine? Recently, Penglai Palace has become famous because of the healing medicine. What are they talking about? According to the content of their conversation, it seems that one of the women has developed a medicine that can completely suppress the power of darkness. She's very happy right now. Following Cheng Terui's words, all the cultivators in the group could not help but be stunned. They looked at Li Yunyu in surprise, thinking that they had misheard. What did you say? A drug that can completely restrain the power of darkness? Li Yunyu's eyes were fixed on Cheng Terui, his eyes filled with disbelief. Cheng Terui nodded. That's right. That's what the contract beast heard. I heard that the reason why Penglai Palace launched such a healing medicine this time was because the prescription was submitted by a cultivator from Penglai Palace. Could it be that our luck is so good that we can meet that cultivator so coincidentally? A look of ecstasy appeared on Li Yunyu's face. If he could obtain that medicinal formula, it would be no different from a treasure. As long as he handed this prescription to the sect, his position in the sect would definitely rise, and he would become a cultivator with a lot of weight. Cheng Trui and the others also thought of the various benefits that this would bring, and their eyes became brighter. Chapter 3981. Let's go. Let's follow them and take a look. Li Yunyu waved his hand and immediately led the cultivators in the group forward. They had to listen carefully to what the other party had to say. As they gradually got closer, the other party's conversation entered their ears. The more they listened, the more excited they became. They never thought that their luck would be so good. Who goes there? Di Beichun suddenly shouted. When they heard Di Beichun's voice, the group's expressions changed, and they looked around. They did not know that there were other cultivators around them. The group looked around cautiously. They had not noticed that there were other people around them. As Di Beichun spoke, Li Yunyu and the others no longer hid themselves. They slowly approached from behind and appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. They're from the Crimson Moon sect. Rin Ziheng and the others immediately recognized the clothes as belonging to the Crimson Moon sect. They immediately recalled what they had said earlier and could not help but sigh in their hearts. Li Yunyu's face rippled with a faint smile. That's right, we're from the Crimson Moon sect. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze could not help but fall upon one of the cultivators behind Li Yunyu. She never thought that she would bump into an acquaintance in a place like this. Xiaonan, Bailey Hongzhuang cried out in surprise. This person had been their opponent in the past, but they had not bumped into each other since. Shangwan Yingying raised her eyebrows as well. I never thought that I would bump into him here. It's really a small world indeed. This fellow can be considered as a fish that escaped the net. Since we've bumped into him now, let's take advantage of this opportunity to teach him a lesson, Xiren said. Xiaonan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in astonishment. He clearly did not know these fellows. Why did they act as if they were very familiar with him? Li Yunyu could not help but turn to look at Xiaonan and asked, Xiaonan, do you know them? Xiaonan shook her head in puzzlement. I don't remember knowing them. Xiaonan, you forget so quickly. Back then, you wholeheartedly helped Gao Hanshun and the others to intimidate us. Now that Gao Hanshun and the other two are dead, you have completely forgotten about us. However, we haven't forgotten about you, Shang Ying said. Back then, after Gao Hanshun's faction had been destroyed, the three of them had wanted to join the Crimson Moon sect through Xiaonan. Xiaonan had even specially hired people from the 100 Flowers Gate to deal with them. She had never thought that she would end up losing the rice used to lure the chicken. Since then, they'd killed Gao Hanchuan's group of 3, yet they hadn't seen Xiaonan. They'd originally thought that they wouldn't have the chance to see her again, yet they just so happened to encounter her today. It was really fate. Xiao Nan, who was originally confused, suddenly widened his eyes after hearing this. His eyes flashed with deep shock. Those four guys back then, were you guys? That's right, it's us. Shangguan Ing replied. You didn't look like this back then. Xiao Nan's face was full of surprise. You changed your appearance back then. It seems that you're not stupid, Xiren said with a faint smile. After thinking about this, Xiao Nan could not help but look at Li Yunyu. Senior brother Li, it seems that we didn't hear wrong. One of these four guys is an extremely powerful doctor. Back then, I saw Master Amo of the 100 Flowers Gate invite her to join with my own eyes. However, I didn't expect her to join the Penglai Palace in the end. Chapter 3982. As Xiao Nan's voice fell, the eyes of Li Yunyu and the others became brighter. They were originally very inclined to believe it, and now, with Xiao Nan's affirmation, they could be sure that this group of people in front of them really had the prescription of the healing medicine. Li Yunyu, we have never had any grudges with you. What are you trying to do by coming out now? Ren Ziheng's eyes darkened, and his voice carried a hint of threat. They were both people who frequented this training ground, so they had some understanding of each other. However, when they met each other, they usually went their own ways and had never interacted with each other. Now that the other party knew that they had the prescription, they must have harbored evil intentions. However, he still had to warn them. After all, the other party had many people in their group. Furthermore, Li Yunyu was also a cultivator at the Starlight Realm. He could not rule out the possibility that there might be other cultivators at the Starlight Realm in the other party's group. Hence, splitting up like this was undoubtedly the best outcome. Otherwise, if they were to fight, he would not be able to determine the final outcome. Li Yunyu smiled faintly. What I want is very simple. As long as you give us the prescription that you have researched, I will let you go. How about it? Don't even think about it. Ren Zimei immediately rejected him. It had not been easy for Bailey Hongzhuang to develop this healing medicine. This was an extremely important item to the Penglai Palace. How could they let the people from the Crimson Moon sect take it away so easily? Once these words were spoken, the faces of Li Yunyu and the others could not help but darken. Looking at your attitude, it's useless for me to speak nicely. I advise you to obediently hand over the prescription. This way, you can still leave safely. If you are unwilling, we can only snatch it by force. This way, I'm afraid that it will be very difficult for you to leave this place alive. Cheng Terui's voice was filled with threat. As long as you leave Xiao Nan behind and leave now, I can still spare your lives. Otherwise, all of you will die here. Di Beichen's expression was indifferent. His hawk-like gaze was sharp and filled with murderous intent. Ever since they had raised their cultivation to the Starlight Realm, no one had dared to say such harsh words to them. Now, a few ignorant fellows had appeared. He could see that these people were not weak, but if they really fought, it would not be easy for them to defeat them. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Li Yunyu couldn't help but chuckle. What a big tone. Xiao Bai, you don't look familiar. This must be your first time coming to this training ground, right? With just a little bit of ability, you're already invincible. Let me tell you, you'll have to pay the price for being so arrogant. That's right. It's obvious that he's a newbie in this team. He actually dares to stand out. What a joke. Xiao Nan sneered. Back then, you were chased all over the place by Gao Hanshun and the others. Although some time has passed, I'm sure you're at most at the 6th or 7th level of the Purple Realm. How dare you show off in front of us? You're courting death. Originally, Li Yunyu and the others thought that Di Beichen's strength was a mystery. Now, after listening to Xiao Nan's judgment, they found it even more amusing. With such little strength, it was easy for them to get rid of him. Chapter 3983. Looking at Li Yunyu and others' contempt for Di Beichen, Ren Ziheng and Xiao Wenyu couldn't help but look at each other. They both felt a little funny in their hearts. Di Beichen was the most important person in their team. Now he was called Xiao by face by the other party. This was really funny. However, Looking at Di Beichen's face, it was really easy for men to give him such a title. However, Di Beichen was not Xiao Bai face. He had both strength and appearance. He was an impeccable powerhouse. Xiao Bai face. Shangwan Yingying couldn't help but laugh after hearing this title. You actually called Beichen Xiao Bai face? As she spoke, Shangwan Yingying couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. She looked as if she had heard the funniest joke. Ha ha ha, Hongzhuang, isn't this guy too blind? He is not blind, but he doesn't have eyes at all, Bailey Hongzhuang said lightly, but there was a trace of coldness in the depths of her eyes. This damn guy, how dare he say that about her Beichen? Li Yunyu and others originally only felt that what they said was right, but after looking at Shangwan Yingying's exaggerated behavior, they couldn't help but frown. Could it be that Xiao Bai face in front of them was actually very strong? That's not right. He had stayed in this place for a long time. He had met most of the Penglai Palace's team, especially people with outstanding appearances like Di Beichen and others. If he had seen them, he would definitely not forget them. What's more, Xiaonan confirmed that this guy was definitely a cultivator who had joined the Penglai Palace not long ago. Why did he have such a strange expression? Li Yunyu, you are wrong. Xiao Wenyu and I are not in charge of this team, Ren Ziheng said slowly, but his eyes turned to Di Beichen. Looking at Ren Ziheng's actions, Li Yunyu and the others couldn't help but stare blankly. The former's attitude was already very obvious. He wanted to see Di Beichen's attitude. I'll count to 3. If you don't scram, I'll take your lives. Di Beichen's voice was cold. He didn't even give the other party a chance to speak before he made his decision. Seeing Di Beichen being so arrogant, Li Yunyu's face turned extremely ugly. However, before Li Yunyu could say anything, Di Beichen's countdown rang out. 3. Senior brother Li, this fellow is truly too arrogant. In my opinion, he deserves to be taught a lesson, Xiaonan said coldly. Back then, he had offended LV Dong because of Di Beichen and the other 3. Just thinking about this made him very unhappy. Later on, when they found out that Gao Han-shun and the other 2 had died in the hands of the 4 of them, they were somewhat shocked. But now that they had bumped into them again, they could only say that these fellows were unlucky. 2. Stop counting. 1. It seems that you all want to die here today. Di Beichen's gaze was cold and chilling. He looked at them as if he was looking at a group of dead people. Ren Ziheng, Xiao Wenyu, you 2 are considered veterans in the Penglai Palace. I didn't expect that you would be led by the nose by a newcomer. This really surprised me. Li Yunyu looked at Ren Ziheng and Xiao Wenyu mockingly. He was a little uncertain because Di Beichen was really too arrogant. Could it be that this guy had a powerful background, so he could lead the entire team as a newcomer? Chapter 30-984. Li Yunyu, let me give you a piece of advice. It's best if you leave now. Otherwise, you might really fail miserably today, Xiao Wenyu said coldly. However, Xiaonan stood up and said, Senior brother Li, you don't have to pay attention to them. They're just trying to scare you. Previously, I clearly understood from Gao Han-shun and the others that they're cultivators who came from the outside world a year ago. They don't have any background and aren't from Penglai Island at all. Xiaonan's face was filled with pride. Others didn't know the background of Di Beichen and the others, but he knew clearly. He definitely wouldn't be fooled by them. Are you sure? Li Yunyu looked at Xiaonan suspiciously and couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Xiaonan nodded affirmatively. I'm sure. Back then, Gao Han-shun alone forced the 4 of them to flee. If they had a background, how could they have fallen to such a state? That's good. Li Yunyu's expression became firm. They must have thought of this trick because they weren't a match for us. They intended to trick us. Fortunately, you know their background, so we won't be fooled. Senior brother Li, don't worry. As long as we kill all of them, no one will know about this at all. Xiaonan's eyes flashed with excitement. As long as we bring this prescription back, we'll have made a great contribution. Li Yunyu retracted his gaze. When he looked at Di Beichen again, there was a trace of disdain and understanding. I've seen through your scheme. It's useless to us. Since you're unwilling to take the initiative to hand over this prescription, then we can only act on our own. Just as Li Yunyu was about to make a move, Di Beichen had already attacked him without hesitation. Vigorous origin power erupted from Di Beichen's body. His attack was swift and domineering. The moment he made a move, it was a fatal move. He didn't give his opponent any time to breathe at all. Seeing that Di Beichen actually had the courage to take the initiative to attack him, Li Yunyo's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. However, he quickly went up to meet him. He had stayed in this training ground for so long. Could it be that he would still be afraid of a newcomer? Let him directly expose their lies. Let's see how they'll continue to act. Bang! The two palms collided, and a tyrannical force spread out. Li Yunyu was caught off guard and was knocked back 2 steps. How could this be? Li Yunyu looked at Di Beichen in astonishment. His eyes flashed with deep shock. His opponent was just a newcomer, but his strength was actually stronger than his. Wasn't that a little too terrifying? His right hand couldn't help but tremble. He had never thought that the opponent's strength would be so powerful. The attack just now was just a casual attack, so he suffered a loss. The meridians in his right arm were directly injured. Xiaonan was also shocked when he saw this scene. He looked at Di Beichen in disbelief and couldn't wrap his head around it for a moment. It had only been half a year since they last met. How could Di Beichen's strength become so terrifying? Li Yunyu, now you should know who the real leader of our team is, right? Ren Ziheng said slowly. Seeing this, Li Yunyu could not help but turn his head to look at Xiaonan. Xiaonan, didn't you say that they are all newcomers? This fellow has obviously already reached the 2nd stage of the Star Magnate realm. Chapter 3985. Then what's the situation now? Li Yunyu cursed inwardly. If he had known that the guy in front of him was so strong, he would have been prepared. He would not have met the enemy half-heartedly and suffered such a huge loss. I don't know how his strength suddenly became so strong. When I met him, he was only at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. What kind of joke is this? Li Yunyu no longer believed Xiaonan's words. A year ago, he was still at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. A year later, he actually broke through to the 2nd level of the Star Radiance Realm. Are you dreaming? Anyone with a brain would know that this kind of thing was impossible. Xiaonan's expression was a little awkward. In fact, if he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that such a thing could happen. However, he clearly remembered that Di Beichen and the others were at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Therefore, when he met them, he was still a little afraid. He really could not understand how Di Beichen and the others' strength had increased so much in such a short period of time. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in front of Xiaonan. It's time to solve the problem that we couldn't solve back then. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was cold as her gaze fell on Xiaonan. Xiaonan and Gao Hanshun were jackals of the same tribe. They could not solve it the last time, so this time they would not let him go. Xiaonan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him. From her voice, he was sure that Bailey Hongzhuang was Di Bei. It's you. I remember your voice. Among the 4 of them, he had the deepest impression of Bailey Hongzhuang. Originally, it was very easy to teach the 4 of them a lesson. However, it was because of Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills that Master Mo thought highly of her that led to the things that happened later. He could only run away with his tail between his legs. That's right, it's me. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was cold. In the next moment, her attack directly attacked Xiaonan. Xingmeng rank 1's strength exploded forth, and following her aura, Xiaonan's eyes couldn't help but flash with a thick sense of panic. He was only at the 8th level of the Purple Realm. Against Bailey Hongzhuang, who was at the 1st level of the Star Realm, he had no chance of winning. Therefore, when Bailey Hongzhuang attacked him, he could only quickly turn around and flee. In his mind, he kept thinking about how Bailey Hongzhuang's strength had increased so much. It was simply too shocking. Chung Tarui, save me. Xiaonan hurriedly shouted. The chi behind him was pressing straight towards him. He felt as if the skin on his back was about to be cut open. He could lose his life at any time. After hearing Xiaonan's cry for help, Chung Tarui quickly rushed over. However, just as Chung Tarui was about to reach Xiaonan, Mo Yunjue had already blocked his path. If you want to save him, you'd better take care of yourself first. Chung Tui looked at Mo Yunjue in front of him and had a bad feeling in his heart. The other party had only sent out 2 cultivators, but they were both Xing Mang realm cultivators. No one knew how many Xing Mang realm cultivators there were in this group. He began to feel that their previous decision was too hasty. Chapter 3986. Following Mo Yunjue's display of strength at the second level of the Starlight stage, Li Yunyu and the rest's faces turned extremely ugly. Originally, when they saw that the other party only had 13 people, while they had 20, they thought that they should have an absolute advantage. However, they never imagined that the other party, who they thought was a complete newbie, would actually be an Astral Radiance realm expert, catching them off guard. Even in their group, there were only 3 Starlight realm cultivators. How could they not be shocked? Looks like we've really underestimated you. Chung Tarui looked coldly at Mo Yunjue. The appearance of this man in front of him made him feel an inexplicable pressure, causing him to feel extremely unhappy. Mo Yunjue's face was expressionless, his expression cold. You can slowly regret it when you're in hell. Just as he finished speaking, Mo Yunjue's attack came stealthily. Every move was ruthless, aiming straight for the opponent's vital points. Facing Mo Yunjue's attack, Chung Tarui broke out in cold sweat. He completely did not expect that this young man in front of him would use all his killing moves. If he was slightly careless, he would be hit in his vital points, causing him to have no choice but to concentrate fully on defending. He did not want to lose his life just like that. All of you support Xiao Nan. Li Yinyu was currently busy fighting with Di Beichen. When he saw Xiao Nan being chased by Bailey Hongzhuang, he hurriedly called out for the other practitioners in the team. The other practitioners were originally shocked by the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2. However, after Li Yunyu's reminder, they all reacted and immediately rushed to help Xiao Nan. Currently, their greatest advantage was that they had more people than the opponent. Naturally, they could not let the opponent take advantage of this opportunity to reduce their numbers. However, just as the other cultivators took action, Run Ziheng and the rest did not stay idle. They immediately took action and stopped the other cultivators. Die! Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly. She pushed her speed to the limit and struck Xiao Nan's back with her palm. Xiao Nan only felt a strong gust of wind behind him. That ferocious force caused his scalp to go numb. In the next moment, he felt himself being hit by a heavy blow. Following that, his entire body flew forward uncontrollably. An intense pain came from her back. Her internal organs seemed to have shifted under this attack. Xiao Nan was completely out of control. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Pooh! Xiao Nan lay on the ground, unable to get up for a moment. Just as he was trying to get up, Bailey Hongzhuang stepped on his back. Don't even think about getting up. You will never be able to stand up again in this lifetime, Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. Xiao Nan's cultivation was only at the 9th level of the Purple Realm. If it had been in the past, it would have been very difficult for her to deal with him. But now that she was a cultivator of the Astral Realm, it was not difficult for her to deal with him. Since she had said that she wanted to take his life, she naturally would not give him any chance to live. Xiao Nan's expression was extremely ugly. He understood how powerful this attack was. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. If this continued, he would definitely lose his little life here. In the next moment, he immediately took out a pill from his heaven-earth bag and wanted to feed himself. Chapter 3987. Xiao Nan let out a blood-curdling scream. The medicinal pill was directly crushed into the ground, and the back of his hand was also burning with pain. Don't you go too far. Xiao Nan glared at Bailey Hongzhuang, the fury in his eyes almost shooting out. His intense hatred was so intense that he wanted nothing more than to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. However, in the face of Xiao Nan's curses, Bailey Hongzhuang only smiled coldly. I'm bullying you. What can you do about it? Xiao Nan was slightly stunned. Just as he was about to explode, he realized that Li Yunyu and Chung Tarui had been stopped by Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue. The others were still some distance away from him. Now that he was in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, there was no way for him to retaliate. It could be said that his life was completely in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. For a moment, he lost all his temper. Were you all pretending to be strong before this? Xiaonan could not help but ask. He really could not understand. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were only at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. How could they have improved so much in such a short period of time? This completely went against everyone's understanding. No. Then what's going on? What do you mean, what's going on? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. I'm improving while cultivating. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiaonan was extremely depressed. This answer was as good as not answering at all. This was simply impossible. Everyone knew that at their level, every increase in level required a lot of effort. What more to complete the leap from the Purple Realm to the Starry Sky Realm? Many people were stuck at this bottleneck and were unable to break through. Bailey Hongzhuang had just casually said that they had broken through while cultivating. Was she trying to anger them to death? Woman, you're full of nonsense, Xiaonan said angrily. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly stomped her right foot and fiercely stomped on his chest. Xiaonan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Since you talk so much, I'll just send you to heaven. The flowing light sword suddenly appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, and she stabbed at Xiaonan without hesitation. Help! Xiaonan shouted, feeling as if his whole body was suffocating. He didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so merciless. How dare you? Li Yinyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang angrily. If they were killed by Bailey Hongzhuang as soon as they met, where would they put their faces? Hearing Li Yinyu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped and looked at Li Yinyu. Just as everyone heaved a sigh of relief, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and said, Then you have to see clearly whether I dare or not. Just as she spoke, the flowing light sword pierced mercilessly into Xiaonan's chest. Xiaonan's eyes widened as he stared dazedly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Clearly, even at the moment of his death, he could not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so decisive. You, Li Yinyu glared at Bailey Hongzhuang, unable to control his anger. Stop spouting nonsense. Since you want to kill us, you should naturally be prepared to be killed as well. Xiaonan is only going down a wait for you. Later on, you'll all join him one by one. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a small smile. Her figure flashed, and she immediately turned towards the other cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect. End this quickly. Don't let any of them off. Di Beichun suddenly exclaimed. Chapter 3988. Hearing Di Beichun's words, everyone present was stunned. Li Yinyu looked at Di Beichun in astonishment. He didn't expect Di Beichun to be so ruthless, wanting to take all their lives the moment he made his move. Don't leave a single one alive. Mo Yunjue's deep, black eyes flashed with a cold light as he reminded them once again. Originally, Ren Ziheng and the rest didn't understand why Di Beichun suddenly made such a decision. However, after hearing Mo Yunjue's words, they understood after thinking about it carefully. Now, they had to kill the other party without a doubt. Otherwise, if the other party leaked this news, they would be in trouble in the future. Thinking of this, everyone's gaze sharpened. Since there was no way out, they could only fight with their lives on the line. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baisher also joined the battle. Although their strength couldn't be compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, they weren't weak either. They could still deal with the other party's cultivators. Seeing the changes in Bailey Hongzhuang's group, Li Yunyu and the rest's expressions turned ugly. They didn't expect the other party to want them to kill them all in one fell swoop. Di Beichun's attacks became increasingly fierce, oppressing Li Yunyu to the point that he couldn't breathe. Li Yunyu was also extremely depressed. Clearly, he and Di Beichun were both Star Rays Level 2 cultivators. However, he was constantly being suppressed by Di Beichun. It was very difficult for him to even counterattack. He could only barely cope with Di Beichun's attacks. One must know that his battle strength was usually very strong among Star Rays Level 2 cultivators. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. It could be seen that Di Beichen's battle strength was indeed very abnormal. His gaze shifted slightly. He had originally hoped that Cheng Turi could kill Mo Yunjue. This way, the pressure on him would be reduced by a lot. As long as he could kill the other party's Star Rays level 2 cultivators, the outcome of this battle would be decided. However, when he looked at Cheng Turi, he realized that Cheng Turui's condition wasn't any better than his. Both of them could only passively fight, unable to pose any threat to the other party. Li Yunyu cursed in his heart. If this continued, they would really die here. Di Beichen also noticed that Li Yunyu was distracted, and a sneer appeared in his eyes. Wasn't he courting death by being distracted at a time like this? Bang! Di Beichen fainted and then punched Li Yunyu in the chest. Li Yunyu hurriedly retreated a few steps, but Di Beichen did not intend to give his opponent any chance to breathe after a successful attack. He immediately attacked the same spot on Li Yunyu's body, one punch after another. His movements were as fast as lightning, and he continuously landed on the same spot. Li Yunyu could only feel an intense pain coming from his chest. He couldn't tell how many punches Di Beichen had landed on him. When Di Beichen released his grip, he could no longer control his body to continue standing. His entire body fell to the ground with a loud bang, and blood flowed out from the corner of his lips. Senior Brother Li. The Crimson Moon sect's cultivators couldn't help but exclaim. Li Yunyu was the strongest leader in their team. They never thought that he would be beaten down by the other party just like that. When they looked at Di Beichen again, their eyes flashed with a strong sense of fear. Chapter 3989. It turned out that this Di Beichen was not Xiao Bai at all, but a cultivator with abnormally strong abilities. When Ren Ziheng said that Di Beichen was the leader of their team, he was not trying to scare them, but it was all the truth. Senior Brother Li, how are you? Cheng Turi looked at Li Yunyu worriedly. Nothing must happen to Li Yunyu. If Li Yunyu fell, then they were destined to fail. Li Yunyu forcefully swallowed the blood between his lips and teeth. His face was pale, but his gaze was sharp. I really underestimated you. Di Beichen's appearance was too deceiving. He was so young and had such outstanding looks. Who would have thought that he would be so powerful? You overestimated yourself. Di Beichen's gaze was indifferent. He looked at Li Yunyu, who was holding on, with a mocking expression. Others might not know how serious Li Yunyu's injuries were, but he knew very well. Li Yunyu was already severely injured and was no longer his match. If you have the time to worry about your senior brother Li, why don't you worry about yourself instead? As soon as he finished speaking, Mo Yunjue kicked Cheng Terui's body. Boom! Cheng Terui's body fell heavily to the ground. He immediately tried to get up, but Mo Yunjue did not give Cheng Terui a chance to refute. He immediately stabbed his sword. In your next life, before you rob someone, you have to be careful. You have to consider whether you have the ability to do so. Chi! The sound of the sword piercing into the body was heard. Mo Yunjue coldly withdrew his sword, leaving behind a trail of blood. Cheng Terui's body twitched, and he stared straight at Mo Yunjue. Clearly, he did not expect his life to end like this, without any chance to recover. At the same time, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang also ended the lives of the opposing Astral Radiance cultivators. If the opponent's cultivation was higher than theirs, they might be able to hold on for a while longer. But if the opponent's cultivation was the same as theirs, and they had the Blood Chi field and the Killing Chi field, there was only one ending for the opponent: defeat. The Crimson Moon sect had a greater number of cultivators, and they had the upper hand in the battle. Therefore, even though Ziren and the others were fighting with all their might, they could only remain in a stalemate. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang understood in her heart. The Penglai Palace was indeed the strongest force on the Penglai Island. The overall combat power of the cultivators was also stronger than that of the Crimson Moon sect. That was why they were able to fight evenly without having the upper hand. Compared to the calmness of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect were ashen. In the blink of an eye, the strongest fighting force in their team had been dealt with. The result of this battle was obvious. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but look at each other, no longer in the mood to continue fighting. Stop them. They're trying to escape. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately saw through their thoughts and immediately reminded them. Once they let these people go, there was no telling what kind of trouble they would cause in the future. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang said this, the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect scattered in all directions. At a time like this, the only way to save their own lives was to split up and run. Chapter 3990. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two didn't stay idle either. They immediately chased after them. Not long after, everyone returned to their original place, holding the Chinquan bags they had just obtained. Looking at the situation, there should be no fish that escaped the net. Di Beichen's face showed a trace of a smile. His already handsome face was even more handsome. Shangguan Yingying nodded. Of course, since we have already said that we won't leave anyone alive, we naturally won't give them any chance to escape. Li Yunyu and the others are seeking their own deaths. We have already warned them before, but they didn't believe us. Now, they have lost their lives here. Rinzime spread out her hands, looking helpless and mocking. Overestimating one's own strength would only lead to such an ending. Serves them right. Shangguan Yingying curled her lips. They thought they were the predators, but they didn't expect that they would be the prey in the end. They can't blame anyone but themselves for being too greedy. They chose their own path. We're just protecting ourselves. Rin Ziheng smiled faintly. Di Beichen nodded. We can't mention about this prescription. Once it is heard by someone with ulterior motives, it will be very disadvantageous for us. Indeed, we were too careless before. We almost caused big trouble. Ao Lingxiao sighed. Ao Lingxiao sighed. If it weren't for the fact that their team's strength was relatively strong, the situation would have been terrible if Li Yunyu and the others had succeeded. Learning from their mistakes, everyone no longer brought up the matter of the prescription. Previously, the matter with Li Yunyu and the others had already made them wary. If they were targeted by a stronger team, their situation would be dangerous. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were focused on dealing with the skeleton army. Every time the skeleton army appeared, they would accumulate points while picking the black flowers. Although the black flowers were dazzling and didn't occupy a lot of points, they needed to make a large number of them. Therefore, they needed a lot of points. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked in the depths for several days and still didn't find anything that could cause the skeleton to mutate. Fortunately, the strength of their team was indeed not weak. Therefore, even if they encountered the skeleton army, they could often escape unscathed. Although injuries were inevitable, overall, there were no losses. Unknowingly, half a month had passed, and it was finally time for the teleportation array to be activated. We could finally go back. Xiao Wenyu couldn't help but sigh. When they had first come here, their team had been full. He hadn't expected that only the 4 of them would be left. One could imagine how emotional he felt. I've been busy for so many days this year. It's indeed time to go back and have a good rest. Rin Ziheng smiled faintly. I'm sure that after we return, Junior Sister Bailey will tell the Hall Master and Master Long about the healing medicine. They will definitely be very happy. A smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. After half a month of research, she had successfully developed the healing medicine. There would not be any other problems. In that case, another incredible thing will happen to our Penglai Palace. In the future, this news will surely resound throughout the entire Penglai Island. Who knows how many forces will be envious of us? Chu Jinfeng said with a smile. Chapter 3991. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to Penglai Palace, Xiao Wenyu and the other 3 bid farewell to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Rin Ziheng, Junior Brother D, will head back first. Xiao Wenyu cupped his hands. Thank you for your help this time. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to return safely. Senior Brother Xiao, you've said thank you many times. We all understand. Di Beichun smiled faintly. Hearing this, Xiao Wenyu also chuckled. Haha, that's true. See you next time. Goodbye. After Xiao, when you left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others went directly to the restaurant to have a big meal. After eating dry rations for so many days in a row, they just wanted to reward themselves. Eating the steaming hot meal again, everyone felt a burst of joy. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others went to Long Yanwei's residence. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived, they only saw Long Yanwei and did not see Zihua. A hint of surprise appeared in Wen Xiren's eyes. It's rare that Instructor E isn't here today. Hearing this, Long Yanwei could not help but chuckle. Do you think Zihua is so free every day? It's just that every time you come, you have something to do, so he's always here. However, if he knew that you're coming today, he might come too. In that case, Instructor E still pays a lot of attention to us. You're all in the limelight of Penglai Palace. It's not strange to receive such attention. Long Yanwei smiled faintly. Looking at you guys, you must have gained quite a lot from the training ground this time. Di Beichen and the others looked at each other and nodded. Not bad. Then why are you looking for me today? Long Yanwei looked at Di Beichen and the others curiously. Then his gaze fell on Yinjue. We're here to see how Yinjue's contract beast is growing now. That's one thing. Yinjue said. Just one thing? Long Yanwei raised his eyebrows slightly, and a hint of doubt appeared in his eyes. What else? At this moment, Zihua's voice sounded from outside the house. Yanwei, I heard that your proud disciples are also here. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but chuckle. Sure enough, Zihua paid them a lot of attention and rushed over as soon as he heard the news. Seeing Zihua appear, Long Yanwei said, You came at the right time. They were just talking about not seeing you today. I see. Zihua's figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. I don't need to guess. I know that it must be Wen Xiren who said that, right? You know it. Of course. Now, Long Yanwei's expression turned serious. Since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came to look for him, something important must have happened. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Master Long, we're here to tell you a piece of good news. Oh, Long Yanwei was surprised. What good news? Zihua's face also showed curiosity. Didn't you just come back from the training ground? What good news can you bring? Chapter 3992. Looking at the actions of Di Beichen and the others, Long Yanwei and Zihua could not help but turn their gazes towards Bailey Hongzhuang. They were extremely curious. I've already successfully developed a medicine that can restrain the dark force. Bailey Hongzhuang's red lips parted slightly as she revealed the good news with a smile on her lips. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Long Yanwei and Zihua could not help but be slightly stunned. Didn't you already develop it before? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Previously, it only had a restraining effect. This time, it completely restrains the dark force. As soon as these words were spoken, Long Yanwei and Zihua's pupils instantly dilated as they stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. It was as if they could not believe it. What did you say? Zihua raised his voice and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. You've developed a medicine that can completely restrain the dark force. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded affirmatively. How did you manage to develop it? Didn't you always say that you were still lacking a medicinal catalyst? Long Yanwei could not help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang had previously mentioned this matter, and he had also heard the same thing from the Hundred Flowers Gate. However, not only had the Hundred Flowers Gate not found the medicinal catalyst, they had not even thought of a way to restrain it. Clearly, there was a huge gap between their progress and Bailey Hongzhuang's. In fact, he felt that it was already very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to create this healing medicine with a restraining effect. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to create a healing medicine that could completely restrain the dark force. However, what Bailey Hongzhuang said at this moment was definitely not a lie. He was also extremely shocked in his heart. I happened to find this medicinal catalyst when I went to the training grounds this time. After a period of research, I found that the medicinal catalyst was not wrong. Coupled with the success of my previous research, I've successfully concocted a healing medicine that can completely restrain the dark force. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said. Hearing this, Easy Hua and Long Yanwei's eyes flashed with a trace of excitement. Bailey Hongzhuang, you're really a genius. In order to find a way to restrain the dark force, the entire Penglai Island spent a lot of effort, but there was no progress. They did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to find a way not long after she arrived. This medicine was of great significance to them. Long Yanwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with eyes full of emotion. He had never thought that he would be able to recruit such a genius on a whim. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's results, the conditions he offered to recruit her were nothing at all. Back then, he had felt that he had suffered a loss. Now, it seemed that he had profited greatly. Long Yanwei, Yanwei's, he said Yanwei. Long Yanwei thought about it. He knew the significance of this prescription for Penglai Palace and even the entire Penglai Island. If Bailey Hongzhuang was willing to give this prescription to Penglai Palace, then Penglai Palace's first position would be unshakable. At the same time, he also knew that such an approach was somewhat difficult. It was really not worth it to hand over such a treasure. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Master Long, since I've come to tell you, I'm naturally willing. Chapter 3993. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Long Yanwei and Easy Hua couldn't help but look at each other. Their eyes flashed with a light of disbelief. They originally thought that it would be very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to hand over the prescription, but after all, there was an example last time. They felt that it might be possible. They really didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to agree so easily. Happiness came too suddenly, making them somewhat unable to believe it. Are you really willing to hand over the prescription to Penglai Palace? Long Yanwei couldn't help but ask again, just to confirm Bailey Hongzhuang's answer. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, I came here to hand over the prescription to you. In this way, Penglai Palace can also speed up the production of a medicine that can completely suppress the dark power. It'll be very helpful to everyone. After receiving Bailey Hongzhuang's affirmative answer, Long Yanwei and Easy Hua couldn't help but reveal ecstatic smiles on their faces. If it was someone else who told them that they had developed a medicine that could completely suppress the dark power, they might not believe it. However, this person was Bailey Hongzhuang, so they wouldn't doubt it. Because Bailey Hongzhuang did have this ability. Bailey Hongzhuang, it's great that you are willing to hand over the prescription to us. I think the palace master will be very happy after hearing this news. Long Yanwei said with a smile. Easy Hua couldn't help but say, the entire Penglai Palace and even Penglai Island will benefit from your actions. Now, you have really become a great person of Penglai Island. When Bailey Hongzhuang told them the prescription, they were very surprised. Now that they knew that the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang did this was not for her own benefit, but to help everyone, he couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang in a new light. At Bailey Hongzhuang's age, there were very few people who could have such awareness. However, as she said, developing a medicine that could completely suppress the dark power was of great significance to the entire Penglai Island. This meant that they wouldn't have such a large number of casualties in the future. Many practitioners wouldn't be killed by some small injuries. Their power to deal with the skeleton army would also increase. Instructor E is too kind. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Bailey Hongzhuang, I'm really curious how you found the catalyst. Long Yanwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. I know that the people of 100 Flowers Gate have searched the training ground for so long, but they couldn't find the catalyst. It's only your second time, but you found it. It's amazing that you can find it. Speaking of this, I have to say that Hongzhuang's eyesight is really good. None of us thought that the catalyst was actually in the skeleton army. When Xiren couldn't help but say. When these words came out, Long Yanwei and Easy Hua couldn't help but be stunned. Their faces were filled with astonishment. What? The catalyst is actually in the skeleton army? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. The catalyst is a kind of black flower. It's in the skeleton army, and it's very difficult to be noticed. I just happened to find its existence. So that's how it is. Long Yan Wei sighed. No wonder everyone spent so much time and still couldn't find the catalyst. It turns out that it was actually with the skeleton army. That's why everyone ignored it. Chapter 3994. Bailey Hongzhuang, you really are amazing. You were able to find the catalyst that so many people from the Hundred Flowers Hall failed to find with such ease. If the members of the Hundred Flowers Hall found out about this, they would probably die of anger. Izihua shook his head and sighed. Back then, the Hundred Flowers Hall had always firmly believed that the catalyst was in the training grounds. Unfortunately, not a single blade of grass grew in the training grounds, so they were unable to find the catalyst at all. As a result, they gradually gave up on that idea during this period of time. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I searched for a very long time in the training grounds as well, but I was unable to find it. However, I accidentally noticed that there were actually plants growing in the skeleton army, and I was extremely surprised as well. In reality, if she hadn't coincidentally noticed it from that angle, she probably wouldn't have known when she would have found the catalyst. It could only be said that the catalyst was hidden too well. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang passed the prescription to Long Yanwei and said, Lord Long, give this prescription to the hall master. The earlier you make it, the earlier it'll be effective. Long Yanwei's eyes lit up when he received Bailey Hongzhuang's prescription, and he immediately nodded, All right, Bailey Hongzhuang, give this prescription to the hall master. He definitely won't mistreat you. Izihua smiled. Even though Bai Tsangming often joked with them, he knew very well that Bai Tsangming was an extremely fair person and would definitely not mistreat anyone. Not to mention, this prescription was extremely important to the entire Penglai Palace. It was simply a huge help to Bai Tsangming. I'm sure the hall master will definitely be extremely happy once he finds out. Long Yanwei smiled faintly. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were chatting, a voice suddenly rang out from outside the room. I'll definitely be extremely happy once I find out what it is. Long Yanwei and the others couldn't help but look at each other when they heard that, and a wisp of a smile appeared on their faces. Speak of the devil, and he'll appear. After that, Bai Tsangming's figure appeared before everyone's eyes. Bai Tsangming was a little surprised when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. So it's Bailey Hongzhuang. What are you guys talking about that makes me happy? Palace Master, what we said is not wrong. If you knew, you would definitely be very happy. Izihua raised his eyebrows, keeping him in suspense. Oh, Bai Tsangming was surprised. That makes me curious. What exactly is it? In the next moment, Long Yanwei handed the prescription to Bai Tsangming. You have to reward Bailey Hongzhuang well this time. Bai Tsangming took the prescription doubtfully. After looking at it carefully, he was still a little confused. This is a prescription. What kind of prescription? It's a prescription that completely restrains the power of darkness, Long Yanwei explained. Bai Tsangming could not help but be stunned when he heard this. He stared at Long Yanwei in shock, and then his gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. You've developed a medicinal formula that completely restrains the energy of darkness? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Yes. After receiving Bailey Hongzhuang's confirmation, Bai Tsangming could not help but widen his eyes. Did I hear wrongly? Is it really completely restraining the energy of darkness? I've already tested it. It really can completely restrain the energy of darkness. If you don't believe me, you can test it yourself. Bai Tsangming returned to his senses and shook his head. There's no need. I believe you. Chapter 3995. How did you do it? This is simply too shocking. Bai Tsangming revealed a joyful smile. To him and the entire Penglai Palace, this was something worth celebrating. Bailey Hongzhuang took out a chinquan bag and said, This is the guiding herb. The medicine that I concocted previously could not completely restrain it because I lacked the guiding herb. Now that the guiding herb has been found, it will naturally be able to completely restrain it. I see. Bai Songming came to a realization and took out a black flower from the Chinquan bag. This is the guiding herb? The flower is actually black. How rare. This should be a flower unique to the training ground. I have never seen any records related to it in any medical books. However, I have already studied it, and this flower does not have any side effects. It seems to be born to restrain the power of darkness, and the ingredients inside are only effective against the power of darkness. Bai Songming could not hide his joy. He immediately patted Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and said joyfully, "Bailey Hongzhuang, you have really done a great service this time." "Palace Master, you flatter me." Bai Songming waved his hand. "I am speaking the truth. You are a great contributor to the Penglai Palace. Tell me, no matter what the reward is, I will satisfy you." "Oh, right. After this medicine is produced, your share will be increased by another 10%. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "Palace Master, I do not need anything now. I'm already very happy to be able to help the sect." Currently, she did not lack anything. Her only hope was to increase her strength. However, she had to rely on herself for this, so she did not want anything. Bai Songming's gaze could not help but change when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. A feeling of regret silently lingered in his heart. On Penglai Island, almost everyone only cared about their own interests. From the first time Bailey Hongzhuang gave him the prescription for the healing medicine, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was not someone who would ask for an exorbitant price. Now that he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang did not want anything, he felt even more guilty. People were often like this. The more the other party forced you, the more unwilling you were to give. On the contrary, if the other party didn't want anything, you would want to give them more. How can that do? Bai Songming shook his head. You've made such a great contribution, so how can you not want anything? How about this? I have a lot of things in my treasury. You can go there and pick one. No matter what you like, I'll reward you. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other when they heard the words treasury. They never imagined that Bai Songming actually had his own treasury. Compared to the bewilderment of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua's faces were filled with astonishment. Usually, Bai Songming cared the most about his treasury, and even they did not know exactly what treasures were inside. They never imagined that he would actually allow Bailey Hongzhuang to casually choose one. This was truly rare. Bailey Hongzhuang, there are many treasures in the Palace Master's treasury. Why aren't you thanking the Palace Master? Long Yanwei reminded. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately bowed when she heard that. Thank you, Palace Master. The Palace Master chuckled. This is what you deserve. Palace Master, we've plucked many black flowers this time. I'm sure that they can be used to create many medicines. These black flowers are all here. Chapter 3996. Thank you for your hard work this time. Bai Songming was all smiles. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had given him a huge surprise. We have another matter to report this time. Di Beichen's handsome face had a serious and solemn expression. Compared to the joy of developing the medicine, this matter made their mood very heavy. Seeing the sudden change in Di Beichen's expression, Bai Songming and the rest could not help but become serious as well. What is it? When we were training this time, we discovered that the skeleton soldiers had also begun to evolve. Previously, we only discovered that one lich had evolved. This time, not only did all the liches evolve, but even the skeleton soldiers evolved as well. According to our judgment, if this continues, I'm afraid that even the ordinary skeleton army will begin to evolve. Bai Songming furrowed his brows. We also received some news about this. The skeleton army's sudden increase in strength has a huge impact on us. What changes did you discover in the skeleton army this time? Their combat power has become stronger, and they can use martial skills. It's more difficult to deal with them. If the skeleton army also evolves, I'm afraid that we can no longer follow our previous judgment and choose where to train in the training ground. Instead, we'll have to go to a place further away. Otherwise, once we encounter the evolved skeleton army, it's very likely that we'll suffer a crushing defeat, Di Beichen said in a deep voice. How strange. The skeleton army has not made any movements for so many years. Why do they suddenly evolve now? Long Yanwei's eyes flickered with confusion. This was not good news for them. Originally, with the skeleton army's strength, it was already very difficult for them to eliminate it. Now that their strength had increased greatly due to the evolution, the difficulty of dealing with it had increased greatly. They originally thought that after Bailey Hongzhuang developed the medicine that could completely restrain the power of darkness, their efficiency in dealing with it would increase by a lot. They did not expect the skeleton army to also improve. They were really helpless. In my opinion, something must have happened in this training ground. Bai Cangming's eyes turned gloomy. The skeleton army would not evolve for no reason. There must be an opportunity. It seems that we need to take this matter seriously. If there really was a special opportunity, they had to find a way to solve it. Otherwise, if the skeleton army continued to evolve, they would be very passive. That's what we thought as well. That's why we didn't see anything special when we were in the training grounds. Di Beichon said slowly. From the looks of it, I'm afraid that only the deepest part of the training ground is possible. Hearing this, Bai Cangming glanced at Di Beichon and the others with praise. You're all very smart. I will send someone to investigate, starting from the deepest part. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they heard Bai Cangming's decision. Since the Hall Master had sent someone to investigate, the possibility of finding the item was very high. They could rest assured. If he could find and destroy that thing as soon as possible, he could at least stop the skeleton army from evolving. After that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others left Long Yanwei's residence. They had achieved their objective, and Bai Cangming had informed them that they would head to his treasury in 2 days to select treasures. Chapter 39-97. They all understood that the most important thing for Bai Cangming now was to produce the healing medicine. At the same time, he sent people to investigate the changes in the training grounds. The impact of this matter was too great. It was probably not just a matter of Penglai Palace. All the forces on Penglai Island who were going to train needed to know about this matter. In front of the skeleton army, they were all allies and would definitely stand on the same side. After that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others went to the cultivation area to cultivate. For several days in a row, they were in a high-intensity battle. They were not in a hurry to go to the place to gain experience. Cultivating well could actually promote the progress of their cultivation. The next day, the news that Bailey Hongzhuang had developed a medicine that could completely restrain the power of darkness spread throughout the inner palace of Penglai. For a time, everyone was shocked. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately attracted everyone's attention wherever she went. This Bailey Hongzhuang is too amazing, isn't she? She developed the medicine not long ago. This time, she just returned to Penglai Palace and made a medicine that could completely restrain the power of darkness. How did she do it? I have no choice but to be convinced by her. Among all the doctors on Penglai Island, I admire Bailey Hongzhuang. There are so many doctors and alchemists in 100 Flowers Gate, but none of them can make it. Bailey Hongzhuang made it so easily. The gap between the two can be imagined. I now have a good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. If they can give the prescription to the palace master, we will all benefit. It was unknown who said this, but then many cultivators nodded. This was also what they thought. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others first joined Penglai Palace, they were envied and hated because they were too high profile and treated too well. Moreover, they caused such a big commotion back then. Most people did not have a good impression of them, and only felt that Master Long and the others were too biased. However, now that Bailey Hongzhuang had made a healing medicine for everyone to benefit from, everyone changed their view of her. That was because people with strength would always receive extraordinary treatment. At least, the practitioners of the entire Penglai Palace were using the healing medicine developed by Bailey Hongzhuang. In this case, if someone still said something bad about Bailey Hongzhuang, it would be too much. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly enjoyed treatment in Penglai Palace that she had never enjoyed before. When she went to the restaurant outside to have her meal, there were actually many cultivators who greeted her in a friendly manner. Junior Sister Bailey, let's go out for a meal. Junior Sister Bailey, you're really amazing. I really admire you. Junior Sister Bailey, let's form a team together next time. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the complete change in everyone's attitude and was secretly surprised. This change was so great that even she felt it was a little unbelievable. Hongzhuang, you are now completely popular in Penglai Palace, and you are someone that everyone admires. A smile of admiration appeared on Xiren's face. In the past, when we were walking on the road, most of the people who looked at us were not happy. Now, when we walk on the road, all the people we see show us a friendly look. Chapter 3998. Even in the past, no one would be so blind as to cause trouble for us. Mo Yunjue said calmly. Shangguan Yingying was slightly taken aback when she heard this, but she immediately reacted. Indeed, with their team's current strength, no one would be so blind as to cause trouble for them. Otherwise, wouldn't they be looking for trouble? Even so, it doesn't feel good to be hated by others all the time. Shangguan Yingying shrugged. She still preferred to be accepted by everyone. However, when she turned to look at Mo Yunjue, she thought, Mo Yunjue probably did not feel that way. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were cultivating in the cultivation area when Ren Ziheng and the others suddenly came looking for them. Senior Brother Ren, why have you suddenly come looking for us? Could it be that something has happened? When Xiren looked curiously at Ren Ziheng and the others, they had previously agreed to go to the training grounds in 7 days. It was clearly not time yet. I've come here to tell you a piece of news. Ren Ziheng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and slowly said, Today, people from the 100 Flowers Order and the Crimson Moon sect have come. They are now in a meeting with the Hall Master. Teacher, he has asked me to tell you that the 100 Flowers Order and the Crimson Moon sect must have heard about the news of Junior Sister Bailey successfully developing the medicine. They have specifically asked to see you. Hearing this, everyone's gaze fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang. It was normal for such a shocking piece of news to attract people from the other two great organizations. However, the two great organizations wanted to see Bailey Hongzhuang. Could it be that they wanted to poach her? What did the Hall Master say? Di Baichen asked. The people from the 100 Flowers Order and the Crimson Moon sect have specially come. The Hall Master naturally had to give him face and had no choice but to agree. Ren Ziheng felt helpless. Teacher, he has asked me to inform you that Junior Sister Bailey will have to go after their meeting. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I understand. If that's the case, why don't we go to Master Long's place first? Di Baichen suggested. Presumably, Long Yanwei would also be going over later. It would be better to go with Hongzhuang at that time. That's for the best, Ren Ziheng said with a smile. Do you guys think that the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect suddenly came here to recruit Hongzhuang? Although the Palace Master will also sell the medicine to other forces after obtaining the prescription, the profit from this is not small. If they can obtain the prescription themselves, it will be much more convenient. Shangguan Yingying's eyes flashed with a bright light. Bailey Hongzhuang was very popular now. Presumably, any force would have such a plan. That should only be one of the reasons. The other reason is the evolution of the skeleton army that we mentioned. I'm sure the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect are very concerned about it, so they've come to discuss it with us, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Di Baichen nodded slightly. Indeed, this matter is very important. It's to be expected that they would have such a reaction. I only hope that the three great organizations can find this thing as soon as possible. Otherwise, as time passes, the problem will only get bigger and bigger. Ren Ziheng sighed. As he spoke, he suddenly looked curiously at Bailey Hongzhuang. Junior Sister Bailey, if the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect are willing to spend a lot of money to recruit you, will you go? Chapter 3999. The Penglai Palace was the strongest force on Penglai Island. Naturally, the Crimson Moon sect could not be compared to it. Moreover, the 100 Flowers Gate had once invited her to join them, but she rejected them. Even if they wanted to recruit her now, the conditions they offered would not be much better than the Penglai Palace. She might as well stay here. After all, She was already very familiar with this place. Moreover, her teammates were suitable to develop here. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Run Ziheng could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Junior Sister Bailey, I'm relieved to hear that. Otherwise, it would be terrible if you were to be recruited by other forces like this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Senior Brother Run, don't worry. That won't happen. I'm guessing that the Palace Master and Master Long are also worried about this. If they know your answer, they will be relieved. Ren Ziheng smiled. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at Master Long's residence, they found that both Master Long and Yi Zihua were there. Greetings, Master Long, Instructor Yi. Everyone bowed. You're here. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Long Yanwei, and Yi Zihua's eyes lit up. After Bailey Hongzhuang handed the prescription to the Palace Master, they had already made the medicine immediately. After that, they also proved that the medicine had the effect of completely restraining the power of darkness, which made them very surprised. They did not expect that the biggest problem on Penglai Island for so long would be solved so easily. Even they found it hard to believe. The envoys from 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect are currently talking with the Palace Master in the conference hall. I'm sure that after they're done discussing the matters related to the evolution of the skeletons in the training grounds, they will call for you. Long Yanwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said slowly. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Master Long, they want to see me. Is it because of the prescription? That's right. This matter is simply too sensational. Thus, once it's spread out, it cannot be controlled. Right now, almost the entire Penglai Island is discussing this matter. This is especially true for the cultivators from the 3 great sects who have been to the training grounds. Originally, after your reminder that there might be something in the depths of the training ground that could cause the skeleton army to evolve, the Hall Master wanted to discuss this matter with the people of the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect. However, before he could send someone to invite them over, the other party had already heard the news and rushed over. So it seems, the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect are really fast. Xiren teased. It's normal for them to act so quickly. After all, they've been paying attention to this matter for a long time, Yi Zihua said. In fact, the 3 major forces have been working hard to research medicine. The 100 Flowers Gate was the most famous, but the Red Moon sect and the Penglai Palace had also not given up on this matter. They did not expect that in the end, it was the Penglai Palace who coincidentally recruited Bailey Hongzhuang to develop a method. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were talking, Master Long's subordinates had already come to inform them. Seeing this, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua looked at each other before looking at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, come with us. All right, rest here for a while. We'll be back soon. Long Yanwei then looked at Di Beichun and the others. Chapter 4000. In the discussion hall, Mo Xingyu looked at by Songming in admiration. There was no lack of envy on his face. Congratulations, Hall Master Bai. The effects of the healing medicine that you made previously had already amazed me. I never thought that you would have already developed a medicine that could completely restrain it in just a few months. It's truly amazing. I'm impressed. That's right, Hall Master Bai. Your speed is simply too fast. It's truly enviable. With Hall Master Bai's wise leadership, Penglai Palace's potential is truly limitless. Ren Fingni from the Crimson Moon sect said. Bai Cangming could not help but smile when he heard their words. You're flattering me. I was only able to develop this medicine because I recruited a genius. This is all thanks to her. In the end, he had not helped Bailey Hongzhuang at all. This medicine was completely refined by Bailey Hongzhuang alone. He did not intend to take advantage of Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing Palace Master Bai's words, I'm really curious as to which genius doctor was able to find a way to break the seal in such a short period of time. Compared to her, our Crimson Moon sect is truly ashamed. Renfini could not help but sigh. When he first heard the news, he even felt that it was a lie. He did not dare to believe it at all. This was because they had been researching this problem for far too many years, but had never found a solution. Although Penglai Palace had indeed made significant progress. They were only able to restrain it after all and could not completely break it. It had only been a few months, but Penglai Palace said that they had already developed a solution. This was simply too shocking. However, after he repeatedly confirmed it, everyone told him that this news had indeed come from Penglai Palace. Furthermore, it was extremely reliable. Only then did he believe it to be true. As a result, he decided to head to Penglai Palace almost immediately to find out more about it. Now that he had truly understood this news from Home Master Bai, he could only feel exceptionally amazed. On one hand, they would be able to buy medicine that could restrain the power of darkness from now on. This was undoubtedly excellent news. On the other hand, Penglai Palace's reputation would definitely soar because of this incident. In the future, the distance between them and Penglai Palace would only increase. It was impossible to say that they were not envious. I've already sent someone to invite her over. She should be here soon. Bai Songming smiled faintly, but there was a complicated look in the depths of his eyes. If it was possible, he did not want Mo Xingyu to know about Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the other party kept mentioning this matter throughout their conversation. Out of consideration for their feelings, he could not just ignore it, so he could only agree. Over the years, he had often interacted with these two people, so he knew their style very well. He didn't need to think to know that they must be thinking about how to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang into their sect at this moment. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were too outstanding. Once Bailey Hongzhuang joined them, it would be tantamount to obtaining the prescription. In this way, they would no longer need to buy medicine from the Penglai Palace, which would be much more convenient. Chapter 4001. Bai Songming was also rather worried about this. He did not know what kind of conditions the other party would offer to invite Bailey Hongzhuang. He also did not know if Bailey Hongzhuang would be moved. Bailey Hongzhuang had already become his most important disciple in the entire Penglai Palace. He did not want Bailey Hongzhuang to be poached away like this. Mo Xingyu's gaze would occasionally drift towards the door of the discussion hall. He was constantly thinking about what kind of conditions he should offer in order to attract the other party. Before he had come, the sect master had already given him an order. No matter what the conditions were, as long as he could bring Bailey Hongzhuang back, it would be a great merit. This was because this was the most important matter for their Hundred Flowers sect. Their Hundred Flowers sect had always been renowned on Penglai Island. Although no one had been able to create this medicine before, almost everyone was certain that once someone succeeded, that person would definitely come from the Hundred Flowers sect. Only then would the Hundred Flowers sect be worthy of its reputation and status. However, the cultivator who had created the medicine had come from the Penglai Palace. This was undoubtedly a great blow to their reputation. Many people suspected that their Hundred Flowers sect did not live up to their reputation. They could not even compare to the Penglai Palace, which was known for its strength. This made them feel extremely embarrassed. Now that things had developed to this point, the only thing they could do was to bring the cultivator back and reduce their influence. Moreover, they had researched this medicine for so long, so they naturally knew how difficult it was to create it. The fact that the other party had been able to create it so quickly proved that the other party was indeed a genius doctor. Once the other party was brought back, it would be a great thing for their Hundred Flowers sect. As a result, he had already decided that no matter what conditions the other party offered, he would do his best to satisfy them. Thinking of this, Mo Xingyu could not help but look at Ren Fengni. Ren Fengni probably had the same idea as him. With such a powerful opponent, he would probably have to pay an even greater price to bring the other party back. However, no matter what the price was, it would be worth it as long as the other party was successfully recruited. At that moment, the three people in the hall all had their own thoughts. Just as the three of them were thinking about what might happen, Bailey Hongzhuang, Master Long, and Yi Zihua appeared in their line of sight. Seeing that, Mo Xingyu and Ren Feng and I looked at the three of them. They had seen Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua before. Naturally, they knew that the remaining young lady was Bailey Hongzhuang. Both of them couldn't help but be shocked when they saw her. Even though they'd already heard from Bai Songming that Bailey Hongzhuang was extremely young, they still couldn't help but be stunned when they saw her with their own eyes. Because he was simply too young. If they weren't mistaken, the woman in front of them was only in her 20s. She was actually able to develop a drug that the Hundred Flowers Gate had been unable to develop for so many years. That was simply too shocking. When they thought of this, the two of them could not help but look at Bai Songming suspiciously. They even suspected that Bai Songming deliberately found someone else to pretend to be Bailey Hongzhuang in order to fool them. Chapter 4002. She's Bailey Hongzhuang. Ren Fengni couldn't help but ask. That's right. She's Bailey Hongzhuang. You guys must be very surprised. Bai Songming nodded with a smile on his face. Not just you guys. Even I found it hard to believe when I heard that she had developed the medicine. I even specially sent someone to check the efficacy of the medicine, but in the end, it was confirmed that the effect was real. Looking at Bai Songming's expression, Ren Fengni and Mo Xingyu knew that he wasn't lying. They couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts. Heroes indeed come from the young. Miss Bailey really can't judge a book by its cover. Mo Xingyu exclaimed. It's you? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Mo Xingyu in astonishment. She didn't expect to meet him again here. This was already the third time they had met. The first time they met was at the Devil Training Tower. At that time, she was having an alchemy competition with others and specially invited Mo Xingyu to be a witness. Since then, Mo Xingyu had already invited her to the Hundred Flowers Gate, but she wasn't free at the moment. The second time they met was at the Golden Flame Auction House. Gao Hanchun and the rest had specially asked LV Dong to cause trouble for them, but they happened to meet Mo Xingyu at that time. It was Mo Xingyu who helped them resolve this problem. At that time, Mo Xingyu had also invited her again. At that time, she didn't want to take a look at the Hundred Flowers Gate, but after being recruited by Long Yanwei to the Penglai Palace, she had never thought of going to the Hundred Flowers Gate. She didn't expect to see Mo Xingyu again here today. She was very surprised. It turned out that Mo Xingyu's position in the Hundred Flowers Gate was so high that it was beyond her imagination. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's astonished expression, Bai Songming couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang, did you know Master Mo before? As soon as this was said, Ren Feng and the others' eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Even Mo Xingyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. He didn't remember when he had seen this lady before. Logically speaking, if he had seen this young lady's beauty before, he shouldn't have forgotten her. Unfortunately, even after searching through his memories, he still couldn't remember when he had seen this young lady before. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, I've met you twice before, but not with my current identity. That's why Master Mo is so surprised to see me. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mo Xingyu's eyes flashed with doubt. He asked in surprise, Miss Bailey, when have we met before? I really can't remember. Master Mo, do you still remember Bei? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a faint smile. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Mo Xingyu's eyes suddenly changed. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes changed from the original doubt to a deep shock and surprise. Could it be that you're the young Master D from back then? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. That's right, I am. Mo Xingyu revealed a look of realization. I was wondering how you could have such exquisite medical skills at such a young age. So you're the young Master D from back then. I'm really blind. I didn't realize that you were actually a woman. Chapter 4003. He had already seen how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang was back in a magic training tower. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had always tactfully rejected him, he always believed that one day Bailey Hongzhuang would join their Hundred Flowers Gate. After all, Hundred Flowers Gate was the most suitable place for her to develop. However, he did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to join Penglai Palace, nor did he expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so powerful to be able to develop such a medicine. If he had known earlier, he would have tried his best to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang back no matter what price he had to pay. At that time, He only tried to recruit her many times but did not offer too many generous conditions. This was because he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's attainments in alchemy were indeed amazing, but had not yet reached the point of shocking the heavens and earth. Therefore, he only tried to recruit her verbally. Now that he thought about it, it was too late for regrets. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. At that time, it was also because of some reasons that I disguised myself as a woman. I see. Mo Xinyu replied with a smile. Bai Cangming and the others had been watching the conversation between Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Xinyu. Seeing how familiar the two were, everyone was very surprised. They did not expect the two to already know each other. Master Mo, so you already know each other. Ren Fengni could not help but say. Mo Xinyu nodded. We have known each other for nearly a year, but I did not expect her to be Bailey Hongzhuang. In that case, Master Mo knew Miss Bailey even earlier than she joined Penglai Palace. Ren Fengni immediately calculated that it's a pity that you did not recruit Miss Bailey back then. Ren Fengni's words also had a hint of ridicule. This time, Mo Xinyu and he came with the purpose of recruiting, but they did not expect Mo Xinyu to already know Bailey Hongzhuang and miss this opportunity. Presumably, the latter must be extremely depressed. Ren Fengni found it very funny. Mo Xinyu was already very depressed in his heart. At this moment, when he heard Ren Fengni's sarcasm, he could not help but feel even more unhappy. However, he did not show it on his face and just fell into silence. Long Yanwei and the others could not help but look at each other. They could understand Mo Xinyu's actions back then. If Long Yanwei had not taken a fancy to Bailey Hongzhuang's contract beast, they would not have thought of recruiting Bailey Hongzhuang and the others back. If they did not recruit Bailey Hongzhuang, then it would naturally have nothing to do with their palace. Perhaps 100 Flowers Gate would have taken advantage of it. In that case, it was really a coincidence. Long Yanwei had really made a great contribution to Penglai Palace. Thinking of this, Izihua couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Fortunately, he had pulled Long Yanwei out with him that day. If it was only him there, he probably wouldn't have thought of recruiting them, not to mention that he didn't have enough conditions to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang, since you already know this Master Mo, I will not introduce him. Bai Cangming slowly said, Let me introduce you. This is Ren Fengni from Crimson Moon's sect, Master Ren. Greetings, Master Ren. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed. Chapter 4004. Ren Fengni knew very well that if Bailey Hongzhuang was recruited into the Crimson Moon sect, then with her ability, her status in the Crimson Moon sect would definitely not be lower than his. Naturally, he would not be able to accept Bailey Hongzhuang's salute. Master Ren, I'm just an ordinary disciple of the Penglai Palace. You're a master of the Crimson Moon sect. It's only right for me to salute you. Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Miss Bailey, you've made such a great contribution to the Penglai Palace, but you're still just an ordinary disciple of the Penglai Palace? Ren Fengni's eyes flashed with disbelief. Clearly, he could not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang did not receive any promotion after handing over the prescription to the Penglai Palace. This was a little too unbelievable. Logically speaking, with such a great contribution, her status would definitely be different whether it was in the 100 Flowers Gate or the Crimson Moon sect. Could it be that it was so difficult for the Penglai Palace to raise their status? After Ren Fengni's reminder, Mo Xinyu's eyes lit up. He was very sure that as long as Bailey Hongzhuang could join the 100 Flowers Gate, then Bailey Hongzhuang's status in the 100 Flowers Gate would definitely not be comparable to an ordinary disciple. Just based on this point alone, they had already defeated the Penglai Palace. Bai Cangming and the others also realized this problem and could not help but be shocked. They really did not expect to give Bailey Hongzhuang such a reward. I'm also planning to raise Bailey Hongzhuang's status, but I haven't thought about what title to give her, so I haven't taken any action yet. Bai Cangming hurriedly said. He did not want to give the other two forces any chance to take advantage of this. I see. Ren Fengni smiled faintly. Even though Bai Cangming concealed it very well, he could still see that this was a last-minute decision Bai Songming. Originally, according to his judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang had made such a great contribution to Penglai Palace. Bai Songming should have given her a great reward. However, based on the current situation, Bai Songming didn't seem to have done that at all. This meant that Bailey Hongzhuang might not have received the corresponding reward at all. In that case, they would have a chance to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, the Penglai Palace was not inferior to the Crimson Moon sect in any way. On the contrary, they were even more powerful. If Bai Songming had given Bailey Hongzhuang a generous reward, it would have been difficult for him to find chance. Now, it seemed that he still had a lot of opportunities. He couldn't help but feel happy. Lady Bailey, I heard that you have not been to Penglai Island for long. I believe you have not been to our Scarlet Moon Island. If you are free, why don't you come to our Scarlet Moon sect? I can bring you around for a tour. Rinfeng and I said. Lady Bailey, you promised me that you would come to our 100-Flower Island when you are free. Why don't you take this opportunity to travel around? Mo Xingyu also said. It was not convenient for them to say many things in front of Bai Songming, and they could not directly state their conditions. If they could talk to him in detail alone, they would have a much higher chance of success. Chapter 4005. Bai Songming felt a little helpless. He thought that since he was here, Mo Xingyu and Rin Fengni wouldn't be able to poach Bailey Hongzhuang even if they wanted to. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned, the two of them wouldn't have the chance to see Bailey Hongzhuang again. He didn't expect that the two of them would be so eager to poach Bailey Hongzhuang that they wanted to meet again. Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua couldn't help but look at each other and shook their heads with a sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang was now highly sought after by all the major forces. It wasn't strange for Mo Xingyu and Rin Fengni to behave like this. If they could snatch someone, they would probably want to snatch Bailey Hongzhuang back. Hearing Bai Songming's words, Mo Xingyu couldn't help but smile and said, Hall Master Bai, I just want to invite Miss Bailey to visit the 100 Flowers Gate. We have many doctors and alchemists who want to interact with Miss Bailey. This kind of interaction is also beneficial to the improvement of both sides' medical skills. Bai Songming waved his hand stubbornly. It's not the first time we've met. I know your character very well. This kind of pretense won't work on me. Anyway, Bailey Hongzhuang is a member of our Penglai Palace. You don't have to have any other thoughts. I won't let her go. Bai Songming made his attitude clear. Bailey Hongzhuang was the cultivator he valued the most now. He definitely wouldn't let other forces have the chance to poach her. He could naturally give other forces the same treatment. In short, as long as he was still the Hall Master of Penglai Palace, he wouldn't let anyone poach Bailey Hongzhuang. Hall Master Bai, we didn't say that we wanted to poach her. It's just that Miss Bailey is so powerful. We all want to make friends with her. Rin Fengni also spoke up. We have a lot of people in Penglai Palace. If Bailey Hongzhuang wants to make friends, there are plenty of people. Your Red Moon Island is too far away. Why don't you let her stay in Penglai Palace? If there's a chance, I will personally take her to Red Moon Island. Bai Songming raised his brows, and his attitude was extremely unyielding. He clearly expressed that he didn't want them to have any ideas. He would absolutely not give them the chance to poach Bailey Hongzhuang. When Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua saw this scene, they immediately felt that it was funny. Sure enough, when the palace master became tough, no matter what you said, he would always have the same attitude. Presumably, the other party would feel helpless when facing such a Bai Songming, right? Long Yanwei could not help but sigh. These guys could be considered to have felt what he usually felt. This was the palace master of the Penglai Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly at the side. From the looks of the situation, it seemed that she didn't need to answer anything. The palace master had completely rejected them on her behalf. This was good too. He didn't have to think about how to reject Mo Xingyu and Rin Fengni. Since the palace master's attitude was so unyielding, the two of them didn't need to think to know her attitude. Hall Master Bai, Mo Xingyu and Rin Fengni still didn't give up. They came with a mission this time. If they could complete it, they would definitely be rewarded greatly when they returned. If they couldn't complete it, it would be considered a failure. Master Mo, Master Run, you don't usually come to our Penglai Palace often. Since I'm here today, why don't I take you around? Chapter 4006. The words that Ren Fini and Mo Xingyu were about to say were stopped by Tsangming. Upon seeing this, Ren Fini said, "That's good too. Why don't Miss Bailey come with us?" Bailey Hongzhuang was just about to answer when she saw Tsangming give her a look. She instantly understood and laughed in her heart. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Master Run, but I still have to go back and cultivate, so I won't be going with you. I believe that the two masters will definitely have fun with the Hall Master around." Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, Tsangming's eyes were filled with satisfaction. Bailey Hongzhuang was really smart to be able to understand with just a look. Seeing that Mo Xingyu was about to say something, Izihua hurriedly stood out and said, "Yes, Long Yan Wei, and I will also tour with the two of you. We will definitely make sure that you enjoy yourselves." Bailey Hongzhuang, "Since you still have things to do, you can go back first," said Tsangming. "Yes." Bailey Hongzhuang responded and cupped her hands towards Mo Xingyu and Rinfengni. "Master Mo, Master Run, I will take my leave." Her voice fell, and Bailey Hongzhuang turned and left. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang left just like that, Mo Xingyu and Rinfengni could only swallow their words as they felt extremely helpless. Tsangming's attitude really left them with no chance to take advantage of. They definitely did not have a chance today, so they could only think of a way in the future. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to Long Yanwei's residence, Di Beichen and the rest immediately noticed her figure. "Hongzhuang, you're back," said Di Beichen. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and nodded. "Yes. Didn't you just leave not long ago? Why are you back so soon?" When Xiren was a little surprised. "Didn't Master Long and Teacher E come back with you?" "There's nothing for me to do, so I naturally came back very quickly. However, Master Long and the rest have to accompany the tour and probably won't be back anytime soon. Why don't we go back first?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She clearly knew that with the Hall Master, Master Long, and Teacher E around, Master Mo and Master Run would not have the time to look for her. She was also happy to have some peace and quiet. She did not have any thoughts of joining other forces, not to mention that the Hall Master had never mistreated her. Since Master was to say it to return to Bailey Hongzhuang to meet Master. CTO Hongzhuang's to you to meet meet. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "It's just as we expected." Everyone immediately understood. "I knew it. The people from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect definitely wanted to recruit you, but you rejected them." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "You didn't reject them?" "I didn't need to reject them. The Hall Master had already shut them up." "Haha, the Hall Master is really amazing. I'm sure the people from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect were also very depressed." Everyone chuckled. Although they did not witness it with their own eyes, the situation must have been very exciting. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang went to the Hall Master's sleeping quarters because Tsangming had said that he would bring her to the treasury to pick a treasure. After knowing that Tsangming had a treasury, Bailey Hongzhuang was very curious as to what kind of treasure the Hall Master would keep. Chapter 4007. When he saw that Izihua and Long Yanwei had arrived, astonishment surfaced in Tsangming's eyes. He asked, "Why have the two of you come as well?" Izihua chuckled. "Hall Master, I've long heard that you have a secret treasury, but I've never had the chance to see it. Since Bailey Hongzhuang has come to the treasury to choose, we naturally want to feast our eyes on it. However, Hall Master, you don't have to worry. We're only here to take a look. We won't take the opportunity to take anything away." Long Yanwei maintained his smile at the side. Although he did not say anything, his attitude was very obvious. It was obvious that his thoughts were the same as Izihua's. Normally, the Hall Master loved to enter his secret room. No matter what treasures he had, the Home Master already knew about them. However, he had never had the chance to see the Home Master's treasury, so he was very curious. Now that he had the chance, he naturally wanted to see what treasures were in the Home Master's treasury that could make him act so mysterious. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the palace lord helplessly. She had just gone out today and directly bumped into Long Yanwei and Yizihua. At first, when she saw the strange smiles on their faces, she didn't understand what they meant, but now she finally understood. As it turned out, the two of them wanted to use her as a cover to take a look at the Home Master's treasury. Bai Cangming glanced at Long Yanwei and Yizihua as his expression was filled with helplessness. From the looks of it, if I don't let you see it today, you won't leave? Long Yanwei and Yizihua only had brilliant smiles on their faces. They had already made up their minds. No matter what, they had to see the Home Master's treasury with their own eyes today. Seeing this, Bai Cangming waved his hand speechlessly. Forget it. On account of Bailey Hongzhuang, I'll let you see it today. As soon as these words came out, Yizihua and Long Yanwei's eyes lit up. Today, we can finally feast our eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang, this is all because of your face. Instructor, you must be joking. How can I compare to your reputation? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Long Yanwei waved his hand. What Yizihua said is the truth. Previously, we have said more than once that we wanted to come and take a look, but the Palace Master has never agreed. If it weren't for you, we don't know when we would have the chance to meet. That's right. If it were any other day, I wouldn't let you two see it. Bai Cangming's face was full of approval. Who told Bailey Hongzhuang to be a great hero of our Penglai Palace? I only agreed because I wanted to reward her. Hearing the Palace Master's words, Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed in her heart. It seemed that after Mo, Xingyu, and Rin Feng Ni's visit yesterday, her position in the Palace Master's heart had become even higher. By the way, Bailey Hongzhuang, after Mo, Xingyu, and the others reminded me yesterday, I just remembered that you have made such great contributions to the Penglai Palace. It's not too suitable for you to be an ordinary disciple. Why don't I give you the title of an instructor in the field of medicine? Bai Cangming looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. He had neglected this point previously, and now it was time to make up for it. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was still very young, she could be called a master with her attainments in the field of medicine. Chapter 4008. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions, Home Master. However, there's no need for that. I'll just be an ordinary disciple." It was great that her status in Penglai Palace had risen, but she still had to form a team with everyone. It would be inconvenient if she suddenly had the title of a mentor. Moreover, she didn't really care about these empty titles. After she handed over the prescription, she believed that no one in Penglai Palace would look for trouble with her. What? Bai Cangming looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would definitely not give up such an opportunity. He never expected that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually choose to reject it. It was truly beyond his expectations. Home Master, Bailey Hongzhuang usually forms a team with everyone to gain experience. If she has the title of a mentor, wouldn't it become a mentor bringing a disciple to gain experience? That would be interesting. Yizihua couldn't help but laugh. I see. Bai Cangming finally understood. However, you should still receive the treatment you deserve. Why don't I greet the mentors in Penglai Palace? You can enjoy the treatment of a mentor in Penglai Palace, but you won't have the title of a mentor. In the future, you'll be treated with the same status as the mentors in Penglai Palace. What do you think? That's not a bad idea. Long Yanwei expressed his agreement. Bailey Hongzhuang, what do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Thank you, Home Master. All right, let's go take a look at the treasury first and choose something suitable for you. As soon as Bai Cangming finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the wall in front of her suddenly opened, revealing a passage behind it. So, this was where the Home Master's treasury was located. Bai Cangming walked at the front, while Bailey Hongzhuang followed closely behind. Long Yanwei and Yizihua followed one after another. After they walked in, the door closed again and returned to its original state. Bailey Hongzhuang walked down the stairs bit by bit. She only saw the situation before her clearly when she reached the bottom. This was a very simple secret room. There were several cabinets inside, and some things were placed on top of the cabinets. There weren't many things, but their value was extremely shocking. There were some items that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know what they were, but she saw some heavenly treasures that couldn't even be seen in auctions. Even in her previous life, she rarely had the chance to see such a treasure. As for the other items, she didn't recognize some of them. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. The Hall Master's treasures were indeed extraordinary. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was sighing, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua's faces also flashed with deep astonishment. Palace Master, I really didn't expect you to have collected so many treasures. Aren't you hiding them a little too deeply? Bai Cangming seemed to be extremely indifferent instead, and he said as if it was a matter of course, if I don't hide them, they might be dug out by all of you at any time. Hall Master, this should be used to describe you who always comes to my secret room, right? Ahem. Bai Cangming coughed dryly, and his gaze turned to Bailey Hongzhuang. He said, Bailey Hongzhuang, you could take away any item here, no matter which one you like. Chapter 4009. That's right. Don't stand on ceremony. You must get the best one. Yi Zihua chimed in. Bai Cangming glanced at Yi Zihua and Long Yanwei. These two fellows had always wanted to take advantage of him, but they never had the chance. Now, he could only let Bailey Hongzhuang take advantage of this opportunity to take advantage of him. However, he was perfectly willing to do this for Bailey Hongzhuang. This was because the prescription that Bailey Hongzhuang gave him was a very significant treasure. Not only was it a great treasure, but it also carried Bailey Hongzhuang's trust. Therefore, he felt that it was worth it to give Bailey Hongzhuang any reward. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes lit up when they saw the treasures in the room. Although the room was decorated very simply, they knew that none of the treasures were simple. Master, what kind of treasures do you want to choose? Xiao He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. Do you want to choose medicinal herbs? We can help you look for them. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head when she heard that. Let's see if there are any other treasures other than medicinal herbs first. If you see any powerful treasures, you can tell me. She realized that there were many things that she did not recognize other than medicinal herbs and weapons. She had to understand them well. At the very least, it was good to gain some knowledge. The world 1,000 years later would definitely have improved a lot compared to 1,000 years ago. There were many things that she had never seen before. Since she was already living here, she naturally had to understand it well. It would definitely be helpful for her in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked to the front of a sharp sword. Even though she was just standing in front of it, she could feel the sharpness of the sword. This sword is known as the Icy Frost Sword. It is made from 1,000-year cold steel and has an innate ice attribute. When it attacks a cultivator, it will produce a type of ice power that will invade the cultivator's body and cause great destruction. At the same time, it will also greatly increase the cultivator's combat power. Normally, some expensive weapons would also have such an attribute bonus. The reason why I kept this Frost Sword is because its ice attribute is invasive, as if it can grow. Once it invades a cultivator's body, it will quickly spread, and no one will be able to stop it in time, Bai Cangming explained. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a trace of amazement. This sword actually had such great power, it was truly incomparably powerful. This armor is called the Qin Tortoise Shell. Its defensive capabilities are extremely powerful. Cultivators below the 5th level of Astral Brilliance will basically have no effect on it. It can protect the user's life. Even cultivators above the 5th level of Astral Brilliance will be able to defend themselves very well if their attacks land on the armor. Unless the difference in strength between the two parties is too great, there is a possibility that the Qin Tortoise Shell will shatter. However, before it shatters, it will definitely be able to help the cultivator block a fatal attack. Furthermore, when it shatters, it will also trigger a counterattack, allowing the cultivator to have a chance to escape. Bai Zhangming understood that Bailey Hongzhuang did not understand these things, so he immediately introduced the uses of these items one by one. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two heard about these abnormal abilities, they could not help but sigh in their hearts. As expected of the items collected by the Hall Master, each of these effects was more abnormal than the last. Chapter 40:10. Even if an ordinary cultivator were to obtain such an armor, he would not be able to cause much damage to a cultivator below the 5th level of astral radiance. If such a treasure appeared in an auction, it would definitely be sold for a sky-high price. However, although other armors would often appear in auctions, none of them could be compared to this Qian tortoise shell. Bai Zhangming's eyes were filled with pride when he saw Yi Zihua's astonished expression. I was also very surprised when I first saw this armor. This is the work of an unknown master, but its prowess is far from what an ordinary armor maker can compare to. The Palace Master's collection is really rich. If we did not see it with our own eyes, we would not have known that there were so many treasures. Long Yanwei could not help but sigh. Usually, he basically put all his attention on his contracted beasts and did not pay much attention to these things. It turned out that the Palace Master had collected so many other treasures. In any case, I am the Palace Master. If I don't have any wealth, it would be too inappropriate. Bai Zhangming said. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to the conversation between Bai Zhangming and the other two and felt that it was interesting. The Palace Master's relationship with Lord Long and the others was really good. If it was any other faction, no one would speak to the Palace Master like this. However, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua did not have any scruples in front of the Palace Master. It was clear that the three of them were good friends in private. Master, what do you think of the Cold Frost Sword? Xiao He could not help but ask. It's very powerful. Do you want it or not? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Why? The Cold Frost Sword is indeed very powerful, but I am not proficient in the ice attribute. Furthermore, the Flowing Light Sword's power is not bad either. It is still suitable for me, so I am not in a hurry to change it. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Master, since the Qian tortoise shell is so powerful, do you want it? Xiaobai could not help but ask. No need. Bailey Hongzhuang pursed her lips. Although this Qian tortoise shell is very powerful, it's only useful for cultivators below the 5th rank. Although I'm only at the 1st rank, I believe that in the future I'll definitely surpass the 5th rank. At that time, this Qian tortoise shell won't be of much use. If it was in the past, the Qian tortoise shell would indeed be very attractive to her. However, the difference in strength between the two was not great now, and she did not have such an urgent desire to obtain it. There were so many treasures in the Palace Lord's treasury. Since she was already here, she had to choose a treasure that would be most helpful to her. Master, what kind of treasure do you want? I have no idea. Let's take a look first. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes swept over the treasures one by one. Although there were many treasures, she wasn't a greedy person. She only wanted to find the most helpful treasure. When Bai Zhangming and the other two saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was slowly choosing and did not seem to be in a hurry, a smile appeared on their faces. From the beginning to the end, they had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang's dazzled expression like that of an ordinary disciple. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared very calm and rational. Bailey Hongzhuang's mentality is indeed not comparable to that of an ordinary disciple. So many treasures have dazzled me, but she is still so calm. Chapter 40:11. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, it would be hard for you to believe that someone as young as her could develop a medicine that can restrain the power of darkness, right? Long Yanwei teased. Yi Zihua could not help but nod. That's true, but I believe that I'm not the only one who thinks that way. Both of you should feel the same way, right? Bai Zhangming and Long Yanwei could not help but look at each other. Both of them smiled without saying a word. In fact, not to mention them, probably no one in the entire Penglai Island would be able to guess that. It could only be said that Bailey Hongzhuang could not be judged by common sense. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the various treasures. She had to admit that these treasures were indeed very tempting. There were few treasures that she could not take her eyes off. For a moment, she could not even decide which treasure to keep. In the face of so many treasures, it was a very painful thing to make a choice. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was hesitating about which treasure to choose, her gaze suddenly fell on a black stone in the corner. If it wasn't for the fact that the black stone was placed on top of the cabinet, she would have completely ignored it. This treasury looked like it was frequently taken care of. Bailey Hongzhuang was certain that Bai Songming did not place the black stone here by accident. This meant that the black stone should be a treasure as well. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but walk in front of the black stone. As she got closer to the stone, the look in her eyes quietly changed. That was because she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with the stone. This sense of familiarity felt as if it was born to belong to her. It came inexplicably, but she could not bear to part with it. How strange! Bailey Hongzhuang was secretly surprised. She had never seen such a stone before. So why did she feel such a sense of familiarity? It was too strange. Bai Songming also noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. After hearing what she said, he thought that Bailey Hongzhuang felt that it was strange to place the black stone here. He immediately explained, "I found this stone by accident. Until now, I still don't know what it's used for. However, I'm sure that it's not an ordinary stone because it's filled with a mysterious and powerful energy." Long Yanwei and Yi Hua could not help but walk over when they heard Bai Songming's words. They sized up the stone in front of them. The stone was pitch black and only the size of a fist. It did not look eye-catching at all. If it was thrown into a pile of stones, no one would notice it. However, after sensing it carefully, they realized that it was indeed, as by Songming's words, it was filled with a rather strange energy. "Hall Master, have you asked the others if they recognized this stone?" Long Yanwei could not help but ask. Bai Songming nodded. "When I obtained this stone back then, I specifically asked someone about it, but no one knew. Everyone felt that this stone should be a treasure, but no one could tell what it's used for. I've studied it before and tried all kinds of methods to find out what it does. Unfortunately, this stone didn't have any reaction from beginning to end." Chapter 40:12. Even Bai Songming could not figure out the use of the stone, which showed how mysterious it was. She felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with the stone. She believed that it was some sort of guidance from the unseen world, and she believed that she might be able to discover the use of the stone. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately said, "Hall Master, I want this stone." The 3 humans and 2 beasts were stunned when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. They looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. They never thought that she would actually want this black stone. "You want this stone?" Bai Songming's voice was filled with surprise. There were many treasures in the treasury, and he would not be surprised if Bailey Hongzhuang wanted any of them. However, he found it strange that Bailey Hongzhuang had taken a fancy to this stone. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "Yes. May I know if the Hall Master will agree?" "Bailey Hongzhuang, have you really thought it through?" Long Yanwei could not help but remind her, "If you choose this, you won't be able to choose anything else." "That's right. Although this stone looks very special, it's useless if we don't know its specific use. You have to think it through." Yi Hua also spoke up. Many cultivators would be interested in some unknown items, but in reality, it was very easy to lose such a bet. If they could discover its true use, they might have profited, but it might also be useless and a waste of an opportunity. Most importantly, it would be terrible if he couldn't find a way to use this thing after bringing it back. In comparison, there were many treasures here, and many of them were useful to Bailey Hongzhuang. "I've already thought it through." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled in response. She then turned to Bai Songming. "Hall Master, I want this stone." Bai Songming nodded when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's determined look. "Since you've already thought it through, you may take it. However, if you find that it's useless after you bring it back to study, You can also come to me to exchange it for something. Thank you, Hall Master. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with gratitude. She knew that the Hall Master had said this because he was worried that she would regret it in the future. Therefore, he had taken the initiative to say this so that she would not be embarrassed to exchange it with him later. Otherwise, even if she brought the stone back, she would not have the chance to exchange it for other treasures if it was useless. This showed the Hall Master's tolerance and generosity towards her. However, she still believed that she would not regret taking the stone back. This was because this familiar feeling made her feel that this stone was definitely related to her in some way. Although she did not know what kind of connection it was, she believed that she would figure it out sooner or later. After all, since it was not an ordinary rock, it must have its uses. Just that, Bailey Hongzhuang was the Hall Master to Bai and the Hall Master of Bai Tsangming's. Long Yanwei and Bai Tsangming clearly could not understand Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. They were even more certain that Bailey Hongzhuang would come to the Hall Master to exchange it for other treasures very soon. However, they could just treat it as the Hall Master lending the stone to Bailey Hongzhuang to study for a day. It would not affect anything. Chapter 4013. Hongzhuang. After you saw the Palace Master's treasury, did you find that there were many treasures inside? Shangguan Yingying was the first to speak. She was really curious about what the Palace Master's treasury looked like. Unfortunately, they did not have the chance to see it with their own eyes. However, just by thinking about it, they knew that the items collected by the Palace Master of Penglai Palace would definitely not be simple. It would definitely dazzle and broaden one's horizons. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. There are indeed many treasures, and they are all very powerful. These are treasures that can't be seen even in many auctions. Hearing you say this, I'm even more curious. I really want to see it with my own eyes. There will be a chance in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Since they are all treasures, Hongzhuang, you must have also picked an amazing treasure, right? When Xiren's eyes were filled with excitement. Naturally, we won't be able to see the Palace Master's treasury. However, let us see the treasure that you brought back. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with a bright smile. She immediately took out the black stone from her Cosmos bag. Everyone was looking at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. They only wanted to know what kind of treasure Bailey Hongzhuang had brought back this time. However, when they saw the item that Bailey Hongzhuang had taken out, everyone could not help but be stunned. Then, a strong sense of astonishment flashed in their eyes. What is this? Shangguan Yingying was stunned. A black stone. That's right, that's it. Bailey Hongzhuang replied. You're lying to us, right? Ren Ziheng could not help but speak out. The treasures collected by the Palace Master were definitely not simple. How could he have collected a stone? Yes, Hongzhuang, we all want to see the treasure that you brought back. Don't tease us now. Ren Zimei also spoke out. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang calmly said, I'm not teasing you. This is the treasure that I chose from the Palace Master. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious expression, everyone could not help but be stunned. Their stunned expressions were filled with disbelief. Is this true? You picked this black stone from the Palace Master? Shangguan Yingying said in disbelief. When Xiren picked up the stone and looked at it carefully, he asked, Hongzhuang, is there anything special about this stone? There seems to be a mysterious and powerful force in this stone, but so far I don't know how to use it, but I think it is really special, so I brought it back. Bailey Hongzhuang explained with a smile. You don't know how to use it? Chu Jinfeng immediately grasped the key point in Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently, her expression filled with helplessness. Indeed, we don't know how to use it yet. The Palace Master has not studied it yet. Hongzhuang, you chose such a good opportunity to pick such a black stone. Isn't this too wasteful? Shangguan Yingying could not help but look up to the sky and sigh. She thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would bring back some amazing treasure. Who would have thought that she would bring back such an inconspicuous stone? It was too much of a pity. Beichen, you have to take care of your wife. This is too much of a waste of opportunity. Xiren spoke out. Chapter 4014. Listening to Di Beichen's doting words, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile became even more blissful. Yes, as long as I like it. Looking at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's sweet faces, when Xiren could not help but shake his head helplessly. TSK, TSK, TSK. Look at these two people showing off their love. No one else can do this. Why? When Xiren, you have a wife. Could it be that watching them show off their love will provoke you? Renzime chuckled and teased. Xiren shook his head and spread out his hands. Of course I can't stand it. I'm just speaking my mind on behalf of Senior Brother Ren and the others. Junior Brother One, this is your opinion. Don't drag me into it. Ren Ziheng said helplessly. Big Brother, Junior Brother One has a point. Renzime walked to Ren Ziheng's side. You have been in Penglai Palace for so many years. Logically speaking, you should find me a sister-in-law. Otherwise, you will always be alone. As your sister, I am worried for you. As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes fell on Ren Ziheng. Senior Brother Ren, no matter what, you are still a distinguished and elegant person. In this Penglai Palace, you're also a senior brother figure. Logically speaking, there should be many junior sisters who are interested in you. Could it be that your standards are too high? Why are you still single until now? When Xiren teased, Di Beichen also nodded. It is indeed time to find someone. Seeing that everyone had shifted the question to him, Ren Ziheng was surprised and somewhat helpless. You little girl, are you going to get married now and don't want your big brother anymore? Oh. Di Beicheng raised his eyebrows and looked at Chu Jinfeng and Ren Zime teasingly. So, it is because something good is about to happen. Chu Jinfeng was slightly stunned. Obviously, he did not expect the topic to change to this. However, he quickly calmed down. As long as Zime and Senior Brother Ren agree, I have no problem at all. Ren Ziheng also sighed. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Big brother, what are you talking about? I just want you to find a sister-in-law. Don't tease me like this. Ren Zime's pretty face blushed and her cheeks puffed up. Her eyebrows were full of shyness. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also laughed secretly. Since Ren Zime and Chu Jinfeng's relationship had broken, the relationship between the two had progressed rapidly. If this continued, it would not be long it would become a good marriage. After everyone left, Bailey Hongzhuang began to carefully study the black stone in front of her. He could not help but smile. He said. He could not help but smiled and said. Wife, do you think there is something special about this black he? Or you have discovered, you? Based on his understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang, if she did not have some special thoughts about this stone, she would not have chosen to bring it back. Since she brought it back, she must have discovered something. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I did not discover the use of this stone. According to the palace master, he had found many people to study the use of this stone, but they did not discover anything. It should not be that simple. Hearing this, Di Beichen only looked at Bailey Hongzhuang lovingly, waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to say her reason for doing so. Chapter 4015. Bailey Hongzhuang raised both her hands and answered truthfully. I do have a special feeling about this stone. I don't know why, but when I saw this stone, I felt an extremely familiar feeling. This feeling, it's as if it should have belonged to me. That's why I chose to bring it back. She believed that this feeling was some sort of guidance from the unseen world. This stone must be something very important to her. Since she had been able to meet it, it must have been fate. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichun came to a realization. You feel that it has always belonged to you. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. Although I've never seen it before, I really do feel that way. Di Beichun slowly took the stone. After sensing it carefully, a trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes. I also feel that the aura emitted by this stone is somewhat familiar. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. A trace of interest flashed across her pretty face. You feel that it's familiar as well? Bachin nodded. If I'm not mistaken, this aura should be very similar to the aura in your Chaos Ring. Chaos Ring? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. She only felt that this aura was very familiar. However, at that moment, she could not figure out why it was so familiar. She did not expect Bachin to point it out so directly. It's not the entire Chaos Ring. It's the stone room that leads to the oceanic world. Think about it carefully. Do you feel that the two are somewhat familiar? Bachin reminded her. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it carefully. A trace of astonishment flashed across her eyes. Indeed, the auras of these two are somewhat similar. Just then, Baishir ran out from the Chaos Ring. He walked in front of the dark stone and sensed it. Then, he said, "Master, this aura is very similar. Not only is it similar to the Chaos Ring, even the White Lion's aura is somewhat similar to it." Bachin could not help but exclaim. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the White Lion in front of her. In the past, the White Lion was completely white, but after eating the demon crystal of the demon beasts in the desert world, there were traces of black in its fur. The demonic crystals of the demonic beasts in the oceanic world were also filled with that special black color. So the current White Lion had already turned into a white and black color. That faint black color was somewhat demonic, and it gave people a very special feeling. In the past, the White Lion's fur was pure white and looked very cute. Now it had a trace of black. Coupled with its increasingly strong body, it looked very mighty and domineering. Indeed, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with shock. No wonder she felt that this stone was so familiar. It turned out that this aura had been lingering around her all this time. It was only because she was already completely familiar with this aura that she did not notice it for a moment. It was just like how it would be difficult for the people around you to notice whether the other party had become fat or skinny every day. However, people who had not seen each other for a long time would be able to tell at a glance. This stone is actually related to the world in the Chaos Ring. This is just too strange. Bailey Hongzhuang's pretty face was filled with astonishment. The Chaos Ring had existed for thousands of years. Could it be that this stone is also from thousands of years ago? Chapter 4016. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. Her eyes looking at the black stone became brighter and brighter. She didn't expect to see something related to the Chaos Ring in Penglai Palace. Suddenly, she felt a sense of familiarity. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stayed in the cultivation area to cultivate. They had already agreed to go to the training ground in a few days. However, on such days, they found that the atmosphere in Penglai Inner Palace seemed to be a little different. Master Long and Minter were not in the Inner Palace. Even the Palace Master seemed to be busy with something. This made them feel a little strange. Although Master Long and the others were usually busy, it was the first time they encountered a situation where they were all not in the palace. I don't know what Master Long and the others are busy with. 2 days ago, they hurriedly gave me the contract beast and disappeared. So I have to ask you some questions about contract beasts. Mo Yunjua looked at the dark magic fox in his hand, his eyes shining with a bright and deep light. We are now very familiar with contract beasts. If you have any questions, you can ask us. Although we don't know much about the characteristics of the dark magic fox, most of the questions can be solved. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I heard that it's not just our Penglai Palace that's like this. A group of experts from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Scarlet Moon sect have also disappeared. Many people are guessing if a war is going to break out between the three major forces. Everyone is panicking when Xiren said. Bachin chuckled. In my opinion, the three forces should have united to go to the training ground to find the thing that caused the skeleton to evolve. Master Mo and the others came here to discuss this matter. Now that there is such a big movement, I'm afraid they have found something amazing in the training ground. So they all came out. Bachin, you are really amazing. In fact, this is the case. Xiren nodded. They just released the news that they are not allowed to enter the training ground for 2 days. They can only go in after the notice is released. It seems that something amazing has indeed appeared in the training ground. Let's just wait patiently. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, Dujuf finally returned to Penglai Island after traveling for some time. Coming back here again, Dujue's heart was filled with excitement. In the past, every time he came here, he couldn't help but feel a little sad. It was because he had brought his child here to play and lost his child. Now, after going around in circles, he actually saw his own son on Penglai Island. When he thought of his son's young and promising appearance, he couldn't help but feel proud. Even though he did not grow up with his parents, Di Beichun still grew up to be extremely outstanding, which made him feel deeply comforted. However, he had met Di Beichun on Penglai Island. Now that such a long time had passed, he did not know where Di Beichun was. However, he believed that Di Beichun had not left Penglai Island and must still be here. Although Penglai Island was not small, as long as he wanted to find it, he would be able to find it very quickly. Therefore, Dujue immediately returned to the Golden Flame auction house. Chapter 4017. Looking at the concerned Di Lao, a trace of a smile couldn't help but appear in the depths of Dujue's eyes. All these years, Emperor Elder's concern for this matter was no less than his. He should have stayed in the upper realm, but in order to find Di Beichun, he stayed on Penglai Island. For more than 20 years, Emperor Elder had never returned. I didn't find him, Dujue said slowly. Hearing Dujue's words, Emperor Elder's hopeful eyes instantly darkened. This time, he heard Dujue say that he was very confident, but he didn't expect that he still couldn't find him. He was really worried that he wouldn't be able to see the little young master again in his lifetime. The little young master had been missing for so many years. Although they had never given up looking for him, many people already believed that it was impossible for them to find him. This kind of situation made him feel abnormally depressed. However, already know who he is, Dujue quickly said. Following Dujue's words, Emperor Elder couldn't help but be stunned. He raised his eyes in surprise and couldn't react for a moment. Young master, what did you just say? I said, I already know who he is. It's just that when I went over this time, I didn't see him in person. Dujue's smile gradually widened. Ever since he knew that Di Beichun was his son, he was ecstatic. Unfortunately, he was the only one who could share his joy. Now that he saw Emperor Elder, he couldn't help but want to share this joy with him. Young master, you mean you found the little young master? Emperor Elder's face couldn't help but reveal a happy smile. Where is the little young master? Why didn't I see him? Emperor Elder, this time, I really shouldn't have doubted your judgment. Dujue shook his head and sighed. Actually, we've already seen him before. When Emperor Elder told him that Di Beichun might be the person they were looking for, he didn't believe it at all. He didn't even confirm it. It wasn't until he personally went to the outside world that he realized that Di Beichun really was his son. If he had listened to Emperor Elder and confirmed it before, he would have been able to recognize him long ago. There was no need to wait until today. Emperor Elder looked at Dujue in surprise. After he understood what he said, he immediately understood. Young master, you mean could be Di Beichun? Recently, he only felt that Di Beichun was a possibility. However, when he mentioned it, young master directly denied it. In fact, he felt that the young master's denial. However, now that the young master suddenly mentioned this matter again, he couldn't think of any other possibilities apart from this one. Dujue smiled and nodded. That's right, it's him. This time, I followed the clues I obtained before and found the person who picked up Di Beichun. He was the one who raised Beichun. Moreover, Beichun had that jade pendant on him. I actually saw him long ago, but I didn't recognize him. How foolish. Dujue sighed and shook his head. Back then, he still treated Di Beichun as his friend. They chatted happily. He was very surprised. He didn't think that he would actually meet a very congenial young man on Penglai Island. Chapter 4018. It's really him. Elder D was also in disbelief. Although he had a glimmer of hope, he knew that the chances of success were very small. However, he didn't expect that, even though the chances were small, they really met him. Little young master was found to have the cursed body. How could? The reason he came to the auction house to look for medicinal ingredients was to change his cursed body. This child's fate is truly extraordinary. His wife's medical skills are extremely high, and she forcibly suppressed his cursed body. That's why he's in the state we saw before. We never expected this to happen. That's why we made the wrong judgment. So it's really like this. I also thought that it was too much of coincidence. I just didn't dare to believe it. Elder D's eyes were slightly red, and the corners of his eyes were slightly moist. Good, good. After so many years, we finally found little young master. If Master and the others knew, they would definitely be very happy. Hearing this, Dyujue also felt a wave of emotion. All these years, every time he went back, he was either scolded badly by Master or was rendered speechless by his wife's resentful gaze. Now, when he thought about being able to bring Di Beichun back to acknowledge his ancestors, he felt a wave of joy in his heart. Yes, Elder D, do you know where Beichun and the others have been these days? Dyujue asked aloud. Right now, he only hoped to find Di Beichun as soon as possible and acknowledge him. Previously, his relationship with Di Beichun was quite good. However, he wasn't sure what kind of reaction Di Beichun would have if he knew that he was his father. If Di Beichun resented him, what should he do? When he thought of all these possibilities, his mood was extremely complicated. Elder D shook his head. Ever since young master left, I heard that little young master came to look for you once. However, you weren't there, so he left. Since then, we have never seen young master again. Previously, he was very concerned about Di Beichun's whereabouts, but after thinking that Di Beichun couldn't be the person they were looking for, he didn't pay too much attention to it. So that's how it is. Dyujue's eyes dimmed a little, then became firm. We have to find them as soon as possible. However, young master, is young master's wife called Bailey Hongzhuang? Elder D inquired. Dyujue nodded. That's right, it's her. If it's her, then I think I know where the young master is. Old Emperor's face revealed a happy smile. Recently, Bailey Hongzhuang from Penglai Palace has been in the limelight. It is said that she has developed a drug that can completely restrain the power of darkness. Previously, she had already developed a healing medicine that could restrain the power of darkness. The effect was very obvious, but it couldn't completely restrain it. However, this time, she found the catalyst and was able to completely restrain it. It was because of this that the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect wanted to recruit her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't agree. Since young master's wife is called Bailey Hongzhuang and her medical skills are very good, then it should be her. Chapter 4019. Ever since his conversation with Di Beichun, he knew that Di Beichun doted on his wife very much. Thinking about it, wherever Bailey Hongzhuang was, he would definitely be there. The two of them would definitely not be separated. A joyful smile appeared on Elder D's face. He couldn't help but pace back and forth in his old age. That's great. I'll be able to see the young master soon. I'll make a trip to the Penglai Palace. Dyujue's face was full of smiles. Originally, he was worried that Di Beichun would go somewhere else. If that was the case, it would probably take some time to find him. He didn't expect that Di Beichun would be in the Penglai Palace on Penglai Island. He only needed to look for him. Elder D nodded repeatedly. Good, good, good. In the next second, Dyujue quickly left the Golden Flame auction house. He really wanted to reunite with Di Beichun as soon as possible. Apart from seeing his son when he was young, he hadn't interacted with him for more than 20 years. He only hoped that Di Beichun would forgive him. When the time came, he would be able to bring Di Beichun back to his family. Thinking about how happy his family would be when they found out about this, he couldn't help but feel overjoyed. How many years had it been? He had never been so happy. Ever since the teleportation array in the training ground was sealed, all the cultivators in the Penglai Inner Palace had returned. This scene could be said to be the most lively time. Usually, most of the disciples in the inner palace were training in the training ground. It was already good enough that half of them stayed in the inner palace. Now that everyone had gathered together, they realized that there were actually many people in the inner palace. The cultivation area had become the most popular place. Since they couldn't go to the training ground, naturally, most people wanted to cultivate. Therefore, they all rushed to the cultivation area. Fortunately, we came early and occupied the rooms in the cultivation area. Otherwise, if it was now, it wouldn't be easy to get a room. Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but sigh. Recently, he had completely focused all his attention on cultivation. Therefore, he had completely taken root here. I wonder how long it will take before I can enter this training ground. Although I don't have a good impression of that place, it's quite boring to stay in this training area all the time. Chu Jinfeng spread out his hands, a hint of curiosity appearing between his brows. Recently, the discussion about this matter has been getting louder and louder. Usually, the matters of a training grounds are not known to outsiders. But now that so many people have suddenly decided not to go, the people outside can't help but talk about it. I heard that someone came back last night, but there hasn't been any news yet. I'm afraid it will be soon, Ren Ziheng said. It took me so long to come back. Looking at the situation, the things in the training ground should be very difficult to deal with. Mo Yinda said in a low voice. The experts of the three great powers went together, but they took such a long time, and there was no movement. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Just as everyone was discussing, Ren Zimei quickly ran in front of everyone and said breathlessly, Something big has happened. What's the big deal? Ren Ziheng quickly asked. Phew! Ren Zimei gasped for breath. Bailey Hongzhuang poured a cup of tea for her and said, Drink some water first. Don't worry, speak slowly. Chapter 40-20. What kind of amazing thing appeared? Chu Jinfeng could not hide his curiosity. We were talking about this before. It seems like a relic has appeared, Ren Zimei said. Now everyone is paying attention to this matter. Everyone is talking about it, but this news is true. It was spread by the teachers in the hall. Relic, everyone said in unison, their faces flashing with disbelief. Ren Zimei nodded. That's right. It's a relic. Then why would relic appear in the training grounds? That's a place where dark forces are abundant. When Xiren said in astonishment. I don't know about that. When I heard the news, I hurried over to tell you. I heard that the hall master will explain it personally later. So now everyone is rushing to the square. Let's hurry over there too. Ren Zimei said. Then what are we waiting for? Let's hurry over. Di Beichen stood up. Although he had only heard a little bit of the news, he knew that it was definitely not simple. In the next moment, everyone got up and walked out together. As they walked out, they also found that other cultivators were rushing out, as if they were going to the same place. I don't know who left behind the relic, but it actually appeared in the Dark Lands. It's really a little shocking. Shangguan Yingying could not help but sigh. A relic was a rare opportunity. If it had appeared in other places, she would not have found it strange. However, it appeared in the training grounds, which was very strange. It was said that this training grounds had existed for many years. For so many years, not a single blade of grass grew, and it was a place where the skeleton army ran rampant. Who could build a relic here? Usually, there's so many cultivators who go to the training grounds. If someone wanted to build a relic there, it is impossible that no one would have discovered it. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and said, this was already very strange. According to this judgment, there is only one possibility. Di Beichen said slowly. What possibility? This relic has something to do with dark forces. Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue said in unison. After the two of them finished speaking, they realized that the other party had the same thoughts as them. They couldn't help but look at each other and smile. Something to do with the power of darkness? Xiren raised his eyebrows. Then this ruin should have been left behind many years ago? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That should be the case. Only at that time, it would not be noticed by everyone. If it was later, no one would choose to build a relic in a place where the skeleton army could appear at any time. Maybe it would be destroyed by the skeleton army before it was built. That's true. Ren Ziheng agreed. However, since this ruin can exist in the training grounds for so many years, the restriction must be very powerful. In that case, the experts in the hall haven't been in the hall all this time. Could it be that they went to explore the ruins? Ao Lingxiao said in surprise. As soon as he said this, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. This was very likely. Chapter 4021. Hearing Ao Lingxiao's words, everyone couldn't help but nod their heads. If anyone can master the power of darkness, then they'll really be a great expert. However, the people of Penglai Island hate the power of darkness. If a cultivator masters such a power, I'm afraid he'll be targeted by others, right? Ren Zimei frowned. Naturally, everyone would want to have an incomparably powerful power. However, once this power was displayed, everyone would target it. It didn't seem to be a good thing. That's a matter of opinion. If he's really so powerful, then no one can be his opponent. What's there to be afraid of? Mo Yunjue said faintly, as if he didn't care about the possibility raised by Ren Zimei. Their Shurtian pavilion had always been rejected by everyone. However, weren't there still many people who needed help from them? Even if they didn't like them, they would still secretly come to them for help. The so-called rejection was just a high-sounding excuse. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. There's no good or evil in power itself. It just depends on how the person who masters it uses it. In fact, we don't know what happened hundreds of years ago. No one knows what the person who possessed the power of darkness did, so it's impossible to make a conclusion. That's right. Di Beichen agreed. Maybe the person who mastered the power of darkness didn't do anything that angered people. It's just that he was too powerful and made many people feel threatened, so everyone attacked him together. After all, the hunter shoots the bird that sticks out. Anyone who's too outstanding will easily be targeted. Junior Brother D's words are reasonable. This time, the experts of the three major forces went to study it for such a long time. Maybe they've already obtained the inheritance. It's a pity. We didn't have a chance to go. Otherwise, if we could obtain this inheritance, our strength would definitely improve greatly. Ren Ziheng couldn't help but sigh. This kind of opportunity wasn't so easy to come by. Once they got hold of it, they would have a meteoric rise. Unfortunately, they didn't even have the chance to understand it. When they found out, it was already the result. Looking at Ren Ziheng's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. Senior Brother Ren, don't be sad. There will be more opportunities in the future. That's right. This kind of thing is destined to happen. If it's not destined to happen, then don't force it. If it doesn't happen to us, then there's no point in thinking about it. Ao Lingxiao consoled. As someone from the upper realm, he had a deeper understanding of the power of darkness than anyone else. Naturally, he also understood how powerful the power of darkness was. He did not expect the inheritance of darkness to appear here. If the people from the upper realm were to find out about this opportunity, they would also fight over it. If he could master the power of darkness, perhaps he would be able to snatch his family back from the hands of that bitch. It was a pity that he didn't have the chance to do so until now. Along the way, they discovered that everyone along the way was discussing this matter. That fervent appearance was as if the most lively thing had happened. Chapter 4022. No wonder they didn't allow any of us to enter earlier. They wanted to monopolize this opportunity. Isn't this a little too unkind? No matter what, we are also disciples of the Penglai Inner Palace. Even if there's a chance, it should be a fair competition. How can they make all of us stay outside and give this chance to them? That's right. This is too much. How can they convince everyone? In an instant, everyone discussed animatedly. Their words were filled with dissatisfaction. Clearly, they had already guessed the general situation. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest could not help but look at each other when they saw this. Looks like everyone has a deep grudge about this. when Xiren said with a faint smile, "This matter will definitely cause everyone's resentment. After all, it's impossible for anyone not to be moved by such a huge benefit. It would have been fine if everyone didn't know about it. Now that everyone knows about it, they'll definitely be upset. I'm afraid things aren't as we thought," Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. "If that's really the case, Penglai Palace doesn't need to tell us about this at all. They can find other reasons to cover up this matter, and it won't cause everyone's dissatisfaction. It's a thankless task to tell everyone everything." Di Baichen nodded. "That's right. It looks like this matter is a little different from what we thought before. Let's hurry and take a look." When Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest arrived at their destination, they realized that there were many cultivators around them. At that moment, they had completely surrounded the place and were waiting for the palace master to explain the matter. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest noticed that Master Long and Instructor Yi, who they had not seen before, were here. Master Long obviously noticed them as well and immediately nodded at them. Seeing this, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others all smiled. Not long after, when almost all the disciples had gathered, Bai Congming's figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. "Greetings, Palace Master." All the cultivators bowed together. Their faces were filled with respect. As the Penglai Palace's Palace Master, Bai Congming was extremely powerful and had always been an object of worship and respect. Bai Congming nodded slightly as a warm smile appeared on his dignified face. "Everyone has arrived. Today, I have something to tell everyone." As soon as Bai Congming spoke, the originally clamorous environment instantly quieted down. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Only Bai Congming's voice resounded in the entire area. "I'm sure everyone is very curious about what happened in the training grounds during this period of time. I'll take this opportunity to tell everyone about it." Everyone's gazes became fervent as they looked at Bai Congming curiously. They were truly curious about this matter. Previously, we discovered that the skeletons in the training grounds had mysteriously evolved. This attracted our attention, so we joined forces with the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect to investigate this matter. During the research process, we searched for a while and discovered that a ruin had appeared in the training ground. This relic is completely black. When we discovered it, there were many skeletons gathered here. The reason why these skeletons can evolve is all because of this relic. Chapter 4023. Everyone knew about the recent evolution of the skeleton army, but no one expected that there would be such a complicated reason. According to our judgment, this ruin is probably related to the energy of darkness. The skeleton army is able to obtain nourishment from the energy emitted by this ruin and progress. Therefore, it's very likely that this ruin was left behind by the cultivator who grasped the energy of darkness. Sure enough, this is the case. Di Baichen muttered. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Baichen. "It seems that this ruin is extremely dangerous. Currently, there are many skeleton armies gathered around this ruin. Moreover, there are restrictions around this ruin, so we can't enter it for a while. In the end, the three great forces have decided to give this opportunity to everyone after a discussion." As soon as he said that, the eyes of all the cultivators present lit up, and intense excitement flashed in their eyes. There's actually such a good opportunity. It's obvious that this ruin is definitely extraordinary. If we can obtain the inheritance, we'll be amazing in the future. Yes, perhaps these skeletons will directly listen to our orders in the future. At that time, when they imagined the scene after obtaining the inheritance of the energy of darkness, their hearts couldn't help but beat faster. This was really a great opportunity. Bai Congming had a faint smile on his face as he listened to the discussions of the disciples below the stage. He wasn't anxious at all. After all, this news was indeed very shocking. After a short while, Bai Congming continued, "Everyone, please don't get too excited because of this news. According to our judgment, this ruin is extremely dangerous, and there are various unpredictable possibilities inside. Therefore, everyone must be extra careful after entering. No matter what, Your own life is the most important. After hearing by Tsangming's reminder, everyone recovered from their previous excitement, and a trace of seriousness and solemnity appeared on their faces. As Inner Palace disciples, all of you have fought with the skeleton army many times, so you naturally know how powerful the skeleton army is. The fact that this ruin can appear in the training grounds and the skeleton army can evolve because of it is obvious that there's a connection between the two. After a joint discussion between the three major forces, we have decided to seal the entrance after you all enter. We will not allow other cultivators to enter in order to avoid any unforeseen circumstances. As a result, once you enter, not only will you face the dangers of the ruins, but you will also face competition with the cultivators of the Hundred Flowers sect and the Crimson Moon sect. Swords have no eyes. Everyone must be careful. Bai Tsangming's expression turned grave. Although the leaders of the three forces seemed to have a good relationship, they were all competitors in private. Needless to say, the cultivators and their sects would often have conflicts when they were in the training grounds. It could be said that the grudges between them were not small. This time, the inner hall disciples of the three great powers had gathered together, and the scene was absolutely not to be underestimated. Naturally, he hoped that the cultivators in his sect would be able to obtain the inheritance. However, he had to remind everyone that obtaining the inheritance was not an easy task. If they were not careful, they might lose their lives there. Even with his reminder, he could still predict that after this incident, the number of cultivators who died was not small. Chapter 4024. Upon hearing by Tsangming's reminder, everyone's expression turned grave. Usually, there were many fights between the disciples of the three major forces, and this time, it would probably erupt. Just the thought of that scene alone was enough to understand how shocking it would be. When facing the skeleton army, I hope that all of you can face the enemy together with the disciples of the Hundred Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect. When facing the disciples of the Hundred Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect, I also hope that all of you can support each other. We will follow your instructions, Palace Master. Everyone replied in unison. Bai Tsangming revealed a satisfied expression when he saw the reaction of the crowd. This was all that he could do, and the rest would depend on the disciples' own opportunities. The appearance of a relic definitely meant that there was an opportunity. However, the opportunity this time was rather special, and no one knew who would obtain it in the end. Everyone, make your choice within 2 hours. Once you enter, you won't be able to come out anytime soon. Similarly, if you don't enter within 2 hours, you won't have the chance to enter before the relic ends. Izihua stepped forward and explained the situation to everyone. You only have 2 hours to prepare. Regardless of what you need, it's best to prepare it now. If there are no questions, you can start now. As soon as Izihua finished speaking, all the cultivators present were stunned for a moment before they scattered in all directions. It was obvious that everyone had gone to prepare. However, there was also a group of cultivators who looked hesitant. These cultivators were usually weaker and did not have much confidence in participating in such a fight. After all, when such a group of heroes gathered, almost all the cultivators would gather in one place. Faced with a group of Starlight Realm cultivators, it was really difficult for them to defeat them with their abilities. On the contrary, they might even lose their lives for nothing if they went. In the face of benefits, they had to consider carefully whether to preserve their lives or take the risk. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not delay and immediately started to move. Only 2 hours. That's really tight. Everyone doesn't even have time to think. Xiren quickened his pace and could not help but lament. Deep Baichen's eyes darkened. I think the three major forces don't want others to know about this and possibly interfere, so they only gave us such a short time. Once they enter, they will seal the entrance and no one else can enter. This is also to protect their own interests. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, then looked at A.O. Ling Xiao and the rest. What are your plans? None of you plan to give up, right? Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Run Ziheng and the others all nodded. Such a good opportunity. Whoever gives it up would be a fool. That's right. Although the chances are slim, as long as there's a chance, it's worth a try. What if we succeed? No one knew if this luck would be. If that's the case, then let's go pack up our things. After packing up, we'll meet at the transmission array. Chun said. In the next moment, everyone nodded and returned to their rooms. After this trip, no one knew how long it would take, so they had to be well prepared. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.